Holman, I am a pig in slop in this episode. I can tell you that.
Okay, then.
That was it?
That's it.
We're going to have one of the greats of the car stereo industry here in studio, Gary Bell, formerly of Defined Concepts and Alpine, now with Audio Control and Stinger. Ooh, Nelly! I can't wait! You're just laughing at me over there.
I just know how you get.
If you are into car audio,
and if you're not,
this is gonna. If you're not, skip the episode.
Yeah, just skip.
If you're fascinated with like tech talk,
it's gonna be
and
lightning
and general geekery.
It'll be 8 hours of lightning fanboying over here.
I am gonna be a fanboy. If you enjoy me being a fanboy and asking somewhat intelligent questions once in a while, this is it. If you're not into that stuff, next episode is great for you.
Not so much.
Not so much. It's the Truck Show Podcast. My name is Lightning, and the guy on the other side of the table wearing an AEV t-shirt and an, what's the hat? That is a nice hat you got there, by the way.
OVR hat.
Your nice OVR hat that Lightning doesn't have. It doesn't fit over your headphones. That looks silly.
There's nobody can see us.
Yeah. That's quite a nice hat.
It does stretch.
You guys going to sell those OVR hats?
I'm sure at some point we probably will.
Don't stretch it over your headphones. That looks so... I gotta hold on, people. You just wait. I'm taking a photo of it. I gotta post this. Oh, geez, that's not a good look for you.
I mean, most things aren't.
I don't want to make Gary sit outside too long waiting for us.
So we're not going to spend 40 minutes getting into the show this episode?
I don't think so. No. It almost took us 20 minutes to get into the last episode.
So I shouldn't ask you what you've been up to this week. You shouldn't ask me what I've been up to this week.
Nope, not unless you did something cool.
Nah, not really.
No?
No.
Just a normal week.
I mean, just spent a lot of time on the internet looking at regular cab Super Duties.
Oh my God, did you send me a lot of photos?
No, I sent you like 5.
You sent...
That's out of 100 that I'm like, yeah, there we go.
Lightning over here was the recipient of like 5 or 10 or more photos. So when Holman gets on like a... When he's fixated on something, he's fixated on something. He is.
That's true. I do spend an inordinate amount of attention on whatever that one thing happens to be.
You are very excited about. Are we going to answer email about the truck you're searching for?
I've gotten a few. Yeah.
Not now.
No, I've narrowed it down too.
Later in the show, if we have time, if I don't run on and on forever about car audio, we're going to get this email because Holman is obsessed with buying a OBS Ford with either a gas engine or 7.3. What?
I think I've changed.
Well, you started to come newer, I think you should stay OBS. We'll have the conversation later. But he must have sent me a lot of car gurus, Edmunds. You were searching all the sites, Auto Trader, all the sites looking for the perfect specimen.
Well, no, this is the research phase. I just wanted to see like at what price point is what mileage and condition. Here's the thing.
But you got deep enough that I thought at some point at like midnight, you're like, I bought one.
No.
I mean, you were going.
That's like a couple years away, but maybe a year and a half or something. But here's the thing. I'm learning what gets roached at what mileage.
Sure.
Because I've seen everything from 10,000 miles to 150,000 miles. And I can tell you on those generations of trucks, exactly when the seat bolster goes flat.
Right.
I can tell you when the steering wheel gets roached, and I can tell you where they start to rust. So I'm like learning all this good stuff just off the internet.
You know, a truck that doesn't get roached is a Nissan Frontier. Like, they are super durable. So let's thank Nissan for being our presenting sponsor. And then we'll get through this, get to Gary, and then at the end of the show, we'll tell everybody the truck you're searching for.
All right. Well, of course, Nissan is the presenting sponsor of the Truck Show Podcast. So if you are looking for a brand new truck, you want to head on down to your local Nissan dealership or go to nissanusa.com, and you can build and price a brand new Frontier. The new Armadas are coming online soon, and man, I can't wait to drive one. I'll be going out to Tennessee to get behind the wheel here in
Are you going to the factory?
Like nope, I'm heading to the headquarters for a little drivey drive action, so it should be pretty cool.
It must be nice being a journalist, getting flown all around driving trucks before everyone else.
I have friends that moved out there, and I haven't seen them since they moved. So I'm like, hey, can you guys just fly me home?
Your chef friend Corey Barr has
No, he's in Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
No, but I was thinking to myself, I could stay a couple extra days. So I asked Nissan, hey, while I'm there, can I get some wheels? And maybe you fly me home Sunday instead of Friday? They're like, yeah, no problem. So I'm just going to make a little mini vacation. Yeah.
What are they going to even drive around? An Armada or no?
You have
no idea.
It'll probably be a Frontier or something like that. And so my wife and I haven't gone on a trip in a long time. I'm like,
you're taking her.
you want to meet me out there? So she's going to fly out on that Friday, and then we'll go spend the weekend with her friends, and then fly home together.
Oh, that's a cool little trip.
Yeah, it'd be a good
in
little
some
trip.
Mississippi.
Yeah, so we're going to drive some Nissan stuff, and again, the new Frontier and the new Armada are awesome. So if you haven't seen them yet, you want to check those out. They will be coming to a dealership near you very shortly.
All right, let's go from something you guys love, like the Nissans, to something that you hate. And everybody hates high trans temps and high engine oil temps. The way that you can prevent those high temps in your Duramax is by heading over to bankspower.com and checking out the Cool Runner oil pan or the Ram Air transmission pan. The Cool Runner oil pan is die-cast aluminum, not sandcast like the competition, longer, thinner fins, more surface area, and cooler temps for your lube than anything else on the market. The Cool Runner oil pan fits all Duramax L5Ps, which is 17 to current, and the Ram Air transmission pans fits all 5 and 6-speed Allison Trans up to 2019. Head over to bankspower.com to pick yours up and keep your temps down.
Ooh, and don't forget to mention that all those Banks Power products you can order with AMSOIL in the same box.
That is absolutely true.
So when it comes time to change your lubrication, if you're not already running AMSOIL, you should definitely start. You can go to AMSOIL.com and see their full line of products that includes motor oil, lubricants and protectants, grease, additives, car care products, and more. AMSOIL specialized products are engineered for extraordinary performance across automotive, racing, and power sport applications. AMSOIL has been a pioneer in synthetic lubricants for more than 50 years, and they deliver wear protection, engine cleanliness, and fuel efficiency that conventional oils simply can't match. When it comes to lubrication, AMSOIL is the first in synthetics and also the first choice of the Truck Show podcast.
Hey, and this is pretty cool from our friends over at EGR. If you've been looking for an excuse to buy a roll track, your wait is paying off. They're now offering, through December, a 30% off discount, as well as a $250 rebate on all manual roll track bed covers. Let me say that again. Up to 30% off, plus a $250 rebate on all manual roll track bed covers. Head over to egrusa.com to find your application. They got everything from Gladiators, Ram trucks, Silverados, you name it, and they're adding applications all the time. This is our favorite retractable bed cover. If you want a manual one, which is it's super easy to deploy, head over to egrusa.com today to check out this smoking deal.
The Truck Show. We're gonna show you what we know. We're gonna answer what the truck, 'cause truck rhymes with the Truck Show. We have the lifted, we have the lowered, and everything in between. We'll talk about trucks that run on diesel and the ones that run on gasoline. The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show. Oh, oh.
It's the Truck Show with your hosts, Lightning and Holman.
Holman, I'm hiding my chubby under the desk here because we're talking about car audio, and you know how I get.
Absolutely disgusting.
We have.
I'm glad that we're offset at this desk so that there's no possibility of us touching.
If you were right in front of me, you'd feel me.
No,
right
I
now.
would not. Nope. Nope.
So we have what I like to call a living legend in the studio. We have
listen. How many
higher
times have I
pedigree
said
than you and I?
Don't talk about yourself like that over and over again, and you still,
dude. If there was like an elite task force of car audio specialists that
Yes.
I idolize, this guy in the studio right now, Gary Bell, falls into that category.
okay. So, mother Steve Brown, where does he rank on that scale? Is he a notch above? Are they even?
So it's been a long time since we've talked to mother Steve Brown.
Yeah.
But these guys work together. So Gary, I met Gary at Alpine.
Is that really his name, by the way, or is that just something that Lightning invented?
The mother Steve Brown?
Yeah.
We always say the world famous Steve Brown, but yeah.
Gary, welcome to the pod shed. This is, yeah, I guess he's never been to the pod shed,
and
right?
you should introduce his full name.
So Gary Bell, I did. I said Gary Bell.
All right.
I said that before, so I'll say it again. Gary Bell. I met him.
Mother Gary Bell or
I don't know. I feel like he needs a big title.
world famous Gary Bell?
No, because that's Steve. So we need to give
Steve can't have two.
What do they used to call you at Alpine? Did you have a nickname?
My friends call me El Guapo.
El Guapo.
All right, El
that's
Guapo
pretty cool.
it is.
I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of cool. Are we doing an inside job for Gary?
Yes, play
right.
the intro because
All
you
right.
will forget,
Let's
and
do
then you'll
this
have to do it in
now.
post.
Okay.
It's the
inside job, baby. Yes, it is. It's the inside job now. It's the inside job, baby. It's time for you to share what you do.
All right. So, Gary, you and I met when you were at Alpine, I believe.
Is that when you hung up on him for the first time?
Oh, come on.
It's happened many times, I'm sure. You were cutting your chops, but you were already into car stereo before that. But tell me what you were doing when I met you at Alpine. This is probably in the late 90s? Early 2000s?
It was like 04, 05, 06-ish, right in there.
Okay, mid-2000s.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so Alpine had a long history of building just outrageous demo vehicles, mostly for the CES show to grab attention and bring people to their booth. I had followed the builds, starting when it was Chris Yotto and Steve Brown building, like the Civic and the RSX and some of those wild cars. Brown's M3. I studied those installs coming up. I was still working for other people and building other cars. I was building stuff for Sony and Kenwood and looking up to what the Alpine guys were doing. And so I'd go to CES and I'd study everything they were doing. And then Mike Vu would come in, and Mike and Steve had built the Mini Cooper and then the X5. And Mike pulled me aside at CES when they debuted the X5 and was like, "Hey, I'm leaving. Do you want my job?" And I was like, "At Alpine? Yes." And so Mike introduced me to Steve. We'd met a few times, but kind of hooked that up. And then as Mike exited, I came in and just right into it. And, like you're talking about Steve, I learned so much working with Steve. Such a master. Like, that guy just had a different way. He could envision things that just in 180 degrees from the way I would look at things. And so I grew an awful lot, like I did when I used to work with Mike Vu. He and I both came in working with each other at another shop.
Holman, what do you say about Elon, that he sees in 3D, 4D when you're talking to him? I feel that way about Steve Brown.
Yeah, that he thinks in 3D.
Yeah. So when you're having a conversation with Elon Musk,
he's off somewhere. I've met Elon, and he's just
hearing
somewhere
you.
else.
He's hearing you.
No, he's having a conversation with you,
but he's processing something else at the same time.
You can completely tell that he's got something else. Like, when I had met him, we were with him for like an hour, and at the end of the hour, he was getting on a plane and flying to Texas for the next Starship launch. So in his mind, he's like, "I'm in Texas already. Like, I don't care about the Cybertruck." And so you have a conversation, he'd ask you questions. But there was a whole other computer happening in the background. Oh, yeah. It was fascinating.
Oh,
and I felt like that, when I would ask Steve about, like, "Hey, how would you install this?" And I'm thinking of something very basic. His want is to do something so much more complex that I would have no idea. And he just bangs it out. The stuff he was doing, it was just incredible. And I watched you soak up a lot of that like a sponge.
Yep.
And so other names that you just happened to gloss over, Chris Yotto went on to design interiors, I think, at Honda.
Well, yeah, so
right?
he was at 5-Axis doing
Oh, that's right. He went to
stuff
5-Axis. 5-Axis, for those of you that don't know, is a company down in the San Diego, California area and it's the 5-Axis, I guess, is a reference to a CNC machine, right?
Yeah.
But they were doing super high-end builds for your import car companies, Nissans, Toyotas, Hondas, whatever,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of Toyota and Lexus.
Okay, those types
Scion.
of things. Yeah, so these concept cars they were doing for them. And then Mike Vu, the other name you just dropped, is head of interior design, I think, at Rivian.
Yeah, he's
so
at
this
Rivian.
is a pedigree
Yeah. Oh,
of
yeah.
guys that are coming out of here. So then you do all the stuff at Alpine. Well, I guess let's go through the Alpine years.
Yeah, so built a few cars there. We built the first year was the Sinister 6, which was the 6 Series BMW with like the turret style seat and the whole roof, the kind of engine cover looking mechanism motorized out the back. And
Do you remember that, Holman? Do you remember seeing the 6 Series? Because the chair would swivel out, kind of like a handy-capable vehicle. And it was so many motor actuations in this car. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I remember being at Truckin' Magazine back in the day and then going to CES. And then everybody would have their, whatever the build was. And, of course, Alpine always had stuff. And I remember Sony, was it the Explode line?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sony wanted to get competitive, so they had the Explode line. And I remember some of that. I actually had some Sony Explode stuff in my Ranger at the time. But yeah, and I it's funny, like I can think or I can see in my mind the cars, but I can't remember who they were associated
do you
with.
remember the blue Sony Silverado standard cab?
yeah.
I built that too.
Really? Yeah.
Me and my buddy Sean.
I remember that.
Yeah.
You have those Alpine years where you're really honing your craft, and that at some point you make the jump and you open Define Concepts, your own shop.
Yeah, there was one step in between, which
Okay.
was a buddy of mine, Rob Liss, who used to be
Another name.
Yeah, another guy that was one of the main marketing
Yep.
guys at Sony. Him and Rick Kojan had kind of helped us put together a program to build. We built the 350Z. We built that Silverado we were just talking about. Rob had gone on from Sony and went to work for Monster Cable. And when the Beats headphones launched, they were doing the display program, and he ended up switching and going to work for the company that built the original Beats displays.
Oh, how funny.
And he just happened to call me. I was just having a not so great day one day at Alpine and just kind of figuring out what I was going to do. And he calls me and he's like, hey, I went to work for this display company. We're trying to get into electronics and we need somebody that's creative and can build anything. And it turned out it was like 12 minutes from my house.
And you're like,
all
right, I'm in.
Sweet.
Yeah, they threw cash at me, everything you'd want to hear to make your life good.
You're like, wait, I'm going to save $10,000 a year on commuting
Yeah.
time off my
gonna
and you're going to pay me more? Yeah.
And you're going to give me all the tools that I dreamt of?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a really cool opportunity to kind of apply all the fabrication skills that I'd learned, but then also see this really cool, like short run production with lots of CNCs. At Alpine, I had bought a CNC and learned how to operate it there, which was really nice that, they paid for my education and bought a machine for me to use.
On the job training.
Yeah, it's really nice to start that process. I got to give it a shout out to Jeremy Carlson, who's doing some crazy stuff today, but he's the one that pushed me, whatever that was, 17, 18, almost 20 years ago now, to get into that automation side and add that precision to car audio, which was never a precision game, right? It was always a jigsaw and Bondo game. And
Yeah, they had, like, I remember when
It was particle board and it was felt.
MDF
and,
everything, right? It
Yeah,
was
MDF the world.
glue, and then you the whatever the accelerator for.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
glue.
you'd get into a fresh build at a car show, or the windows would be open, and you could
Smell
just
the
smell it
glue.
off gassing.
Yeah, smell
Ooh,
the
we finished this
contact
yesterday, huh?
glue. Yep.
Especially if you're down in like the south where it's real humid and hot, and
yeah.
you just be coming out at you.
Yeah, CES every year, you'd walk in and you could smell the Rockford vehicle because you know they finished it the night before.
Yeah, don't touch. You might put a thumbprint in the
Yeah.
pinstriping.
Yep.
So then, go ahead.
Yeah, so I worked at the display company for a few years, kind of up and down and up and down, and it's kind of a crazy world. They're building 1,000 displays to go into every Sam's Club or Target or whatever it is, and then
Oh, you're
nothing.
talking about. I'm thinking
point of
like
purchase displays.
point of purchase. So you walk
Yeah.
into a Best Buy and the end cap is made by you guys,
Yeah.
or whatever it
Well,
was.
it's not even just designing it. It's getting the approval. Once your design goes through, now you got to replicate it.
Oh, and such a pain
Yeah.
with those big companies and all the approval process. And then they're like, okay, it's approved. Now it has to hit this reset date in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
By the way, you need to land this end cap display in 1,100 stores, and they all have to be there within 3 days.
Oh, man.
So you got to plan out staggering shipment. It was a great education and a lot of cool tools to see, like some real industrial horsepower when it comes to CNCs and
Yeah.
automated, like, an automated version of a table or panel saw where like you type in the dimensions and it just like grabs the wood and sucks it in and runs a blade through it, like stuff that's
pretty awesome.
Yeah, car audio guys would never get to see that kind of stuff. So that was really fun. So then they went through a couple of rough patches, and we were actually doing some work for Mr. Brown and the Alpine guys, some display work, and we were running into trouble. I basically wasn't getting a paycheck. They're out of business now, so I guess I can say all this, right?
Yeah, sure.
They were basically going out of business and owed me some money, and I was like, I just can't do it anymore. So I let Mr. Brown know. I said, hey, we built you those prototypes, but I'd be looking at taking your business somewhere else. And he basically made me an offer, like, hey, if they're okay with it, why don't you go build them if you think you can handle it? And that just basically instantly put me into business. Like I wasn't ready for it. I didn't study for it, and it just kind of happened.
That was like my first couple clients when I left Motor Trend, started my own business. A couple people called and they said, hey, what do you need? And I'm like, clients. They're like, hey, we need you to do this and that. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll
Write
figure it
5
out.
press releases tomorrow, and you're just like, oh, I guess I can do that.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
But you had all the skills to do that, right? You just hadn't applied them with such force,
Or as
You
a
know?
business.
Yeah, as a business, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought when you opened Define, it was car audio. You're telling me in the very beginning that was exhibits.
It was exactly the opposite. It was mostly point of purchase display, and then it basically, there was enough money in that side of the business that I could build cars and not have to, I don't want to say not be profitable, but I wasn't stressed about it. I was doing it because I wanted to do it. And it became a really focused period of time for me to just understand how car audio was changing and to be able to just take on the big jobs and the jobs that I wanted to without having to deal with the daily.
When you're on you get into the business, right? You're building displays. Was it one of those things where you knew what the cost of goods was, what the supply was, what it was, but you didn't have any overhead? So you could make a little less money, but because it's just you, it felt really good, allowed you to kind of pursue other things, right? And so your clients go, oh, this is cheaper, quality's the same, and you're going, I'm making more than enough money for myself right now. I can kind of pursue some of my passion projects.
100%. And the other side of it too is that when you have that knowledge of electronics and the manufacturing, the short run manufacturing side of things, it's really different because if you just went, if you were an electronics manufacturer and you went to a display company, the chances of having somebody in house that was like a subject matter expert on the product and knew how to show it in the best light and make sure everything was working and functioning properly, it's slim to none.
Yeah.
You have to provide that. So I had this extra kind of service built in that really helped with that stuff and a good understanding.
I want you to touch on that. You started taking on certain projects one at a time. But can you talk us through some of the clients that you had? Because you had like, was it Stevie Nicks?
Yeah, through the years. So that's actually pretty early on. I had ended up at a shop in Beverly Hills, and the client list was already just amazing.
And when you say you ended up, that was where was that on the timeline?
Way before Alpine. This was mid 90s. So I graduated in 92. I used to hang out at a little local stereo shop that was lucky, like for me, that I had this little stereo shop in Irvine called Irvine Sound and Service. Kevin Gribben, still talk to him. He ran the shop. His vehicles were actually in like Rockford's booth at CES in the like 90s. And old school like Symmetry and that kind of stuff. And that was kind of before they really took over and did everything themselves in-house. So as I was graduating, my parents had decided they wanted to get out of Irvine. We'd been there since 78. And they're like, we're going to move to this new community out. It's called Murrieta. And there's nothing out there because they were so sick of how crowded Irvine was in 92.
Oh, my Lord.
So in 92, I was working at a Boy Scout camp out past Temecula. So you take Winchester Road, 79 out.
What was that called?
Lost Valley.
Oh yeah, dude. I spent a lot of time out at Lost Valley.
I worked there for 3 or 4 summers. So my weekends were in Temecula. We used to call it Temec. And there was this little steak.
I never called it Temec.
There's this little steakhouse called the Spunky Steer, and there was like a treat. You know, we would all go. Like the staff would have our day off because camp was a week long, and then the kids would come. I think on Sunday, and they would leave on Saturday morning. So we always had Saturday night. And so we would go as a mob. And I remember we would go out there. Murrieta was nothing, which is a little bit north of Temecula. Temecula I don't even think it really had the wineries and stuff out there.
Not then.
Just maybe a handful. It was a pretty small town. The downtown was like a Western kind of deal. And it felt like you would drive for hours to get out to like Warner Springs from, your exit off the 15. But I remember we would go as a group of like 30 of us, and we went to Target. They opened a big new Target, and I remember my buddy Joe led the charge, and he runs into Target, and he kind of does like the fingers over your eyes like a captain that surveilling, and then we all came running in. We didn't do anything, but we just came running in and ran up and down all the aisles, and like they freaked out. They freaked out because we were probably like the biggest influx of people that they'd seen at that point. But it's crazy because Temecula, I go out that way a lot, but now I can't believe how built up it is now versus early 90s.
Temecula is a really weird spot, not to take this sideways, but for those who haven't been there, you wouldn't, if you came to California, you'd never end up in Temecula. Right. There's no reason for you to ever go there.
Wine tasting. That'd be
wine testing, but you'd go to the Central Valley, which is halfway between.
No. If you're in SoCal and you're coming here,
okay,
there's
if you're
a million people that go to
but
the
most people who
wineries.
come to California who want to go wine tasting go to the Central Valley, which is halfway between Southern California and Northern California, right? It's not south towards San Diego. But Temecula is like a desert in Southern California surrounded by like coolness where, I don't know, it's just a weird anomaly. Like in the middle of the middle of SoCal, there's a desert and hills, and some of it looks like one of the scenes out of the early, what is it?
But it's like
Star Trek, where Captain Kirk would beam down to the planet.
It's like
got
Chaparral.
Rocks going
It's
sideways.
not quite mountain. There's no like pine trees and stuff. It's not
Right.
high enough elevation, but it's not quite desert because there's a ton of things growing there.
It's super
Oak
weird.
trees and chaparral and all that. It's just this kind of like middle zone.
I'm sorry, we took this sideways, Gary. Your parents moved
yeah.
to Temecula.
So they're moving. I'm like, they always told us, hey, we want to keep you in the same school district growing up. And like, literally, I come home one day at senior year of high school, and there's just a for sale sign in the front yard. I'm like, oh, they were serious. And that's pretty much how I found out. And so I moved out with some friends, and I went to my local stereo shop that I used to sweep the floors and just try to learn everything I could. He basically said, yeah, you're of no use to me until you have some real world experience taking apart cars. He goes, why don't you go learn to break cars on somebody else's dime, and then I'll give you a job once you figure that out. And so he wrote me a nice recommendation, and a week later I had a job at Circuit City. Right over the street.
Breaking cars.
Right around the corner on Gothard.
I remember that Circuit City. That was
Yeah.
at the old Huntington Beach.
Breaking
mall.
every plastic tab in the door
Yep,
panel,
yep.
right?
Man, yeah. So I just ran at it as hard as I could. I had watched no disrespect to my sister, but I'd watched her kind of go through a couple years of community college and like didn't really have a vision of where she wanted to be. And I just took that as a lesson and said, as soon as I know where I want to be, I'll run in that
gonna do it,
direction.
yeah.
But for now, I'm going to do what I like doing. And here we are. I'm 50 now. That was when I was 18.
Yeah.
So it didn't really change at all. So
how did that turn into Stevie Nicks?
Oh, okay. So I was working at Circuit City, did that, basically learned everything I
Stevie
could.
Nicks did not roll into Circuit City.
No.
How dare you disparage Circuit City like that?
So I did that until I felt I had gone as far as I could at Circuit City, learned everything I could from everybody I worked with, tons of great people. I would not be where I am today without that like hands-on experience and understanding every different car. When you're doing 6, 8, 10 installs in a day, you start to learn like how a manufacturer puts a car together, how their electrical's laid out. You learn to troubleshoot. There's a lot of lessons.
Which
that are learned there.
manufacturers suck, which don't.
Yeah.
The gauge of wire, the connectors they use, how they route things,
Oh yeah, what's going to be brittle when you pull it apart? Those sorts of things.
which clips hate you.
And the sad part for the kind of audio industry now is that what pulls people in is kind of the glamour and the glitz and the flashy installs and the humongous bass. I mean, the bass is what got us all into audio.
Yeah.
And I think that the guys that are coming up today are so focused on the cosmetics that they don't have the fundamentals the way it was when there was a humongous business of putting radios and 4 speakers in a car, because a Honda Civic or a Toyota truck, it didn't come with a radio or an antenna. Right? Like no kid today is ever going to learn the frustration of trying to get an antenna wire down an A-pillar.
Or like a Honda Accord or a Toyota that has the mast that was
extendable?
motorized.
Oh,
yeah,
And then you'd
motorized
have
antennas.
your buddy would come by or somebody would catch it in a parking lot.
Yep.
It would be bent and you'd have to pull that whole thing apart and pull it.
Or
oh,
God
what a
forbid,
pain.
I remember so I worked for Ken and Sven at Car Fidelity.
Yep.
So that was a small chain in Southern California. It had like 13 stores or something. And they had the most beat-ass van ever that did daily deliveries. They had the central warehouse somewhere up in like the valley. And it would drive all around to the 10, 12, 13 stores. And this van was on its last legs. But the guy just drove it and drove it and drove it. And he'd just come to each store. Anyway, in those stores, we would have old 60s and 70s cars. The guys would come in and go, I need a head unit and 2 speakers. And like, guys are pulling apart like cars that they'd never seen before.
Oh, yeah.
68 Camaro or whatever, like all these cars. They were made for the old style 2-knob stereos, but the guy wanted like a din or a double din, which is the big stack, or all these combos that shouldn't have fit in there. So they had to get creative, and there was a lot of learning then.
Oh, yeah. I remember there was one car that was legendary back then. It was the Datsun B210, and it was basically the area behind the dash was too small to get a radio in, but they weren't super popular, so they never came in. I saw one hit the schedule at Circuit City, and I'm like, I claimed it. I'm like, I want that shit. Like, everybody says this is impossible. Like, it takes like 8 hours to put a radio in it, whatever. I'm like, I just want to crack. I want to say I did one, and
awesome.
I don't remember how long it took, but I got it done.
You got it done. Okay.
So Circuit City, then went to a small kind of, it actually was an Allen Ed's that had been bought out, and just kind of a notch up. And then there was a place in Irvine called Gold Star Audio, and they were just the first Orange County, like stack 'em high, watch 'em fly, but with all the top brands. I mean, they had PPI and Orion and Rockford and JL, like all the great brands, and they were just moving numbers. Like, and that's where I went to work, and I met Mike Vu, and Mike had kind of grew up on the other side of town, more North Orange County, and we had both like soaked up all the knowledge from everybody we could, work with over the years. We came together and we were basically tag teaming cars and building custom trunks and custom systems. And in a matter of maybe 2 months, we just elevated ourselves to such a level because we'd look at something and we'd be like, oh, well, I usually do it this other way. Check this out, and learn a trick, and just skyrocketed. Both of us just grew so much in a short period of time. So I'm super grateful for that. From there, I worked with another guy. His name is Jamie Rawlings, who used to work at Clarion and when Macintosh was there, and he was in sales up front. And he had left and he went to work for this shop up in Beverly Hills called Paris Audio, which was very famous back in the day. The two kind of big ones in SoCal was Paris Audio in LA and Speakerworks in Orange.
And I grew up about a mile from Speakerworks and used to ride my bike to Speakerworks once every 2 weeks and stand on the chain that because they had the keep out, do not cross on their 2-car garage deal. And I followed them from the original location on Batavia or Main Street, whatever it was, to the other location. But I would stand there and just watch them cut wood and put stuff in, and the guy probably thought I was a psycho kid. But they had stuff that nobody else
Surprised
had.
they didn't have
back
you
then.
hand you a broom.
Alpine, Kenwood, Nakamichi, brands that I would never afford. But like Speakerworks went on to like, holy mackerel, they were
So you
groundbreaking.
remember the Buick and the
Yes.
Acura Legend?
Yes.
I actually own the Acura Legend now.
You do?
Yeah, it's
You
in
own
pieces.
the
have it?
It's in
Speakerworks
pieces.
Acura
Yeah,
Legend?
Harry's a friend of mine. The car's changed hand a few times, but it's in my possession.
Does it still
now.
have the horns under the dash?
No, but I have the horns. I have the original horns for it. I have a lot of the original stuff.
People are like, what are you guys talking about? This is a legendary car audio car in that it had Speakerworks at some point started experimenting with horns. And when I say horn, you stood at a concert and you've seen the speaker boxes, and on top you've got literally a horn, and in the bottom you've got a big 12, 15, 18-inch woofer. The horn is made to project out to an audience of thousands of people. They started experimenting with these horns in the dashboard facing you. Like a freaking 14-inch wide horn that was probably 3 inches tall.
Yep.
So 3 inches tall, and it went the width, so way beyond, to the left of your knee, to the right of your knee.
Dreamed about those dimensions forever.
Yeah, exactly. And so they were experimenting with horns way before anybody, doing some really crazy stuff.
Yeah, it really changed the game for audio because those horns are super, super efficient. So what they are able to do is run amplifiers where they're putting out very little power, but when there's dynamics in the music, because they're so efficient that you can have good volume with 5 watts on it, and then when you have something that's really outrageous, like a cymbal crash, you're using all of 15 or 20 watts to make this like super amazing impact that everything's working so effortlessly that it's not like trying to get a tweeter, a tiny little 3/4 inch dome tweeter to play the cymbal crash that, you're talking this huge cymbal.
Just feel like you're there.
I will never forget when I was there, and for some reason he dropped I was standing there against the little chain, his little orange chain that kept people away from walking to their workspace, and he dropped it one day, and they were working on it's like a Toyota or Nissan pickup, and he goes, "Do you want to listen?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And I was sat in the passenger seat, he closed the doors, and I don't remember what he was playing. It might have been like Pink Floyd or something like that. And it hit so hard and so crisp, but not like the bass videos you see. It was so accurate. It was disturbingly accurate. Yeah. I hadn't heard anything like that before. And that is kind of where my real obsession with car audio kind of notched up a little bit.
Yep.
And they were running a lot of audio control stuff even back then, which we're going to get to because that's why you're here today to talk about audio control. Sure. But fast forward to the Stevie Nicks.
Okay, so through those shops, Jamie, who was at Clarion and Macintosh, ended up going to work at Paris Audio, and a very similar phone call, like, "Hey, we need some help up here. We've got a lot of work to do, and we could use somebody of your talent." And I was living in Irvine at the time, and I'm like, I really don't want to.
That's a really long drive.
It's
from Irvine to Beverly Hills could be 2 hours.
2 hours. Oh. It was rough, but the money was good. I was young, and it was all about the experience. Like, again, I was so into audio, and the chance to work on, we would occasionally see Porsches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and that stuff, but like I had maybe at that point in time worked on maybe a dozen Porsches and maybe 3 or 4 Ferraris and 1 Lamborghini, and it was like, oh, here you go, the crappy cars around here are 911s.
Yeah, right,
Like,
exactly, yeah.
So I went up there, and just the clientele, like you're saying, it was just absolutely insane. So many people, but Stevie Nicks was probably the highlight. There's 2 highlights. The biggest one was Rick Rubin in my mind. Rick was a longtime customer of the shop, and he came in and
Rick is known for being an audiophile.
Yeah, he loves music. We have some mutual friends. That one was at ELAC, now the other one's not at ELAC anymore. Andrew Jones.
Yeah, okay.
So Andrew,
Chris Walker's still there.
Yeah, Chris Walker's still there. Yep. Andrew Jones has moved on to MoFi, but he still has Rick come by his new studio up there in LA. And so,
by the way, I just got Chris Walker a set of tickets to go see Jimmy Kimmel Live. Gwen Stefani was playing, so
nice.
Just talked to him 2 days ago.
Nice.
You humble bragging?
I think so.
I am. That was a total brag.
Chris Walker is good people.
I love him.
Good people. I just saw him
he will not
ago.
let me screw with a Toyota truck. He has the same Toyota truck. He's got, I think it's like a 2014 or whatever it is. He
crashed that one. He's got a newer one.
That's right. He's got a newer one. That's right. But he won't let me put anything on it. He's like, nope, stay in stock.
Even
the stereo is stock.
I think I owe him some audio.
I don't know if he'll let you put in
me.
it. It's like he won't let me touch it. It's funny.
Rick had come in, and he came in with this, like, I know what I want. I want this Macintosh radio. I want these Macintosh amps and all this stuff in this brand new Bentley. And like, I'm just blown away. I'm like, oh, I'm super excited.
You know what I think of when I think of Macintosh and Bentley? I think of like a living room with lots of wood and like a fireplace.
Yep.
And a sheepskin rug on the floor and like a really soft leather couch.
Like tube amplifiers? Is that what you picture?
Tube amplifiers on either side of the fireplace, just like glowing, lighting off.
Yeah.
Like that's the Bentley and Macintosh just sounds like glass of wine, just sit there and
So
be
in
like,
jazz, what kind of music?
I don't even care. It just
It's
feels
not
like
ska, I'll tell you that.
I would do it.
Yeah, I know you would.
I would
I
want
know
to
you
hear.
would.
I want to hear how those tube amps handle horns.
There you go. I get Rick's Bentley done, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, oh, this thing sounds...
Was it a convertible or hardtop?
No, hardtop.
Okay.
It was like, in my mind, it was the best sounding thing I'd ever built and whatever. And Rick comes in. I think you might have heard this story before, but I'm sitting in the driver's... Or I feel like I'm sitting in the driver's seat and Rick's sitting in the passenger seat.
And you did all, you time aligned it, you did all that stuff?
This was, we weren't.
This was before that?
Rick had a very strict policy. No EQ and no delay.
No kidding?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
like he's like,
no
I want
cheaters.
pure signal.
Yeah.
And he comes
Oh, that's
in.
right, because he's testing new. He would go like be with Red Hot Chili Peppers and then need to know how that sounded in the car as a normal person,
Yep.
theoretically,
so he
without
was
processing.
At the time, he was working with Tom Petty. And so he literally brings in a burnt disc.
Tom who? Never heard of the name.
Some dude.
Yeah.
And he puts in a disc and he listens to like 12 seconds of a song, right to the next song. And he looks at me and he says, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not super technical, but it's wrong. And I
you're
was
like, damn it!
I was like crushed, right? Like, this is like the hottest chick in the world just said, I'm going to pass.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
You're fat, I'm moving on.
yeah.
No. She asked you to dinner. She paid for dinner, and you paid for drinks. And you're at the end of dinner, and you're thinking, "This is going pretty good for me, right?"
Yeah.
And
so
crushed.
It was like super crushing. And so this sparked this, like, I need to understand why and what's the difference between what I've been doing for the last 8 years of my life and what Rick's been doing in his studio. And so he brought a set of Genelec monitors. Listen to these, listen to this. This is what it's supposed to sound
Now,
like.
wait a minute. So he brought those to the shop.
Yeah. Well,
And
he had his assistant.
Fine, but they brought them to the shop, and you set them up where and played what?
Just set him up in the shop on a counter, like not even looking back now, this is all so wrong, right? For what we know today and the way we build cars today. And you could hear it. You could hear the difference. And luckily I worked with a guy, his name was Dan, and he was super into home audio stuff. And he started like breaking it down for me, like, hey, this is the difference. What it comes down to today, what was wrong with that car was speaker placement, reflections, and the fact that we weren't using a digital signal processor to correct for the issues of the car. I also would have changed the speaker placement and made it easier on myself to tune. It's like picking a cam that rumbles really bad, right? And they're like, well, it's just not drivable. And like, I need it to be drivable. And audio systems have a lot of parallels to building motors in that way. So the next phone call we get, we finally make Rick to where I would say it's passable, right? Like one of these days, I plan on calling Andrew and saying, look, I'm ready. I have the time. Call Rick. I want to build another car for him, right? And do it the way we do it now. But the next phone call we got was from Stevie Nicks. And so with this newfound, like, I'm going to figure this out attitude, Dan and I sat down and laid out a setup. This was when the Navigator first came out.
Okay.
And somehow I talked Stevie Nicks into letting me cut the floorboards out of the front of her truck.
So wait a minute. She had a Navigator. That's
She bought a Navigator.
No, was
when
she
it was
being?
brand new.
Nobody likes Navigators.
I know that, right? So she was
according
being
to my
driven
man,
around in a Navigator.
Yeah, so that was
Okay,
the
got
first
it.
question is, do you drive it? No, my assistant drives everywhere. She's like, I haven't even had a driver's license in 15 years.
Yeah.
But I
a lot of people do that. It's funny. Those in Hollywood, you find that a lot. They don't do it because they're lazy, though. Surprisingly, you think like, oh, so the liability is too high. If they get in an accident,
gosh, yeah.
if they get in an accident and they're driving, they will get sued to high heaven, whatever. So they have their assistant drive everywhere. It happens even Carson Daly, when he was working at the radio station I was at, he would have his assistant drive him all the time because he's like, I can't afford the lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started to look, and sure enough, not everybody, but a lot of people had drivers.
So she let us do it. We cut it up. We put these. This was way before
Cut the
anybody.
floor open.
Yeah, cut the floor open.
Where you put your feet.
Yeah. Up it kind of the way a lot of guys would put speakers in the kick panels. We actually put them kind of in the kick panel, but in the floor,
Like where it angles up?
Yeah, like on the
It's
angle.
it's like a 45-degree.
Almost like at the
Yeah.
bottom of the firewall there?
Yeah. So we did ScanSpeak 7-inch driver. This is like way before like scans got popular in cars.
We were home audio at the time.
Yeah, well, they were tweaky home audio. And so we actually bought a kit from a company that went out of business. North Creek Music Systems used to sell these. Like they would run the Thiel small parameters and match pairs of drivers together, and they'd send you all the crossovers. I mean, we soldered up like 25 components for each side, left and right, and built these gigantic ported enclosures under the truck. So we basically took that studio monitor setup that Rick had showed us and how simple, and when it's dialed in right, how good it can sound. Put them into the kick panels where they loaded well, got rid of all the extra reflections in the car, put the tweeters low in the car as opposed to high to get them away from all the glass. And that car just absolutely changed my mind about the way car audio
Hold on
would
a
work.
second. Now the sound stage is below the dashboard. If I close my eyes, am I hearing the singer under the car?
It actually comes out about dash level. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little low compared to today's standards,
Okay.
But that blending between the mid-range and the tweeter is just super sweet that
Wow.
way. So the trade-off is that you don't get all the reflections off the glass, which are what makes a lot of things not fun to listen
Interesting.
to.
What was her reaction when she picked it up?
She was blown away. And again, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 of us in the Navigator with her giving the demo. Like
Soaking up
everybody's there.
all the sound waves?
My wife came up the day she went to pick it up and all that. It was a big deal. And so it was super fun. Sat in there, and she turns to me as we're like going through songs, and she goes, "It sounds good. I'm just not sure if there is enough bass." And I'm like, "Well, here's my CD case." And I'm flipping through it with her, and I'm like, "You want to hear bass?" And I point to an LL Cool J
Oh,
CD.
I thought for sure you're going to play. What's the one? The guys out of Florida that had all the nasty songs.
Oh, Two Life Crew.
Two Live Crew.
No, so we put in LL Cool J.
By the way, the very first CD I ever listened to,
What?
Two Life Crew.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, my cousin.
If you
brought-
guys are
brought it
old,
in
you'll
house.
remember Two Live
Yeah.
Crew. Yeah.
We're dating ourselves. So we throw in doing it and doing it and doing it well. And the bass hits, and she's like, it's got plenty of bass.
Doing it and doing it and doing it well.
I represent Queens. She was raised out in Brooklyn.
I'm like, yeah, it's super accurate. And so that actually had EQ, had Zapco, the little halved-in, one for the left channel, one for the right channel.
Zapco. Are they still in
Yeah.
business?
Yeah.
Zapco?
Yeah, they've kind of changed their ways. They're not quite what they once were.
Okay.
But,
As
they still
many
make,
companies
They still
are.
make some good products. But again, like all brands, I should be careful the way I state that. All brands have even if they once were known for making the greatest high-end stuff, they've all realized that to survive, they have to make some more mass market products.
Sure, of course.
Chevrolet doesn't only sell a Corvette, right? Like,
right.
There's a lot of things that you got to do to stay in business. So yeah, so there was that. I mean, I did a car for Anthony Kiedis. I did, like a lot of the guys.
What was the weirdest car that you worked on for any other company? Not the B210, but like, were there any either high-end vehicles or cars that you were almost too scared to cut into?
It's my favorite one. It's just cutting up stuff because I can. Nothing too wild other than the stuff. When we cut up the cars at Alpine, I mean, we ruined those cars.
Yeah,
like,
you ruined them. Were there any trucks? We're talking about cars, but were there any trucks that you were impressed with your work afterwards? Were there any show trucks? Because I remember a lot of them were cars, and trucks are kind of hard to pull off oftentimes.
Well, I think
right?
one of the funnest ones, we were talking about the Sony truck that we did for CES that year, and my buddy Sean,
What kind of truck was this?
It was a Silverado, like just standard cab Silverado, but we molded.
Standard cab.
Well, that's what's hard about it, right? Is like you don't have the real estate.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of air inside.
But that can be good though, because one of the best.
Well, but it can be, but it's not always good.
Well, and this was this was as monitors were becoming a thing. Like, how many TV monitors can I put in a car? And so it became a joke because we had Sony backing, right? Sony made really nice monitors, and they're like, as many as you need. So it's like in Sean's 4Runner before this build, he had put one by the battery up front under the hood just for car show stuff, right? Like just gimmicks and laughs. So this one in the Silverado, we actually made like the armrest in the door motorized up, and there was a TV in it. And then like it's a standard cab, but there's 3 TVs above your head behind the back window. It had headrest monitors and a standard cab.
It's like a sports book.
And there's no one behind.
Yeah,
there's a piece of glass behind you.
As our buddy Vincent would say, that's a hater vision, just showing TV out the back.
I remember that.
Yeah, so we just plastered the thing with TVs. But when you folded the seat forward, behind the seats,
TV.
There were a few more TVs. There were 7 10-inch drivers inside the cab behind the seat.
Wait, so you had a walk through or what?
We had cut through below the bed and built the box in. But when you looked in, it just looked like they were all kind of molded, kind of fun. The fiberglass volcano days.
Sure.
And then it came to the bed, and we're like, we want to do something crazy, something nobody's seen. And so, the tonneau cover comes up, and there's 2 like 15-inch monitors, and this is pretty early for that type of stuff. But Sony had this robot dog called Ibo.
I remember the
Ibo.
Yeah, so we worked with the Sony team, and they programmed an Ibo. We built a doghouse into the back of the bed.
I remember that too.
With a 15-inch monitor inside the doghouse for the dog. So the dog would get up, walk around, like greet people, like,
and then go back to the doghouse.
And then go in and sit down in the doghouse and watch TV. That was probably the wildest.
That had to be one of the most photographed pickup trucks of all time.
Oh yeah, it was pretty wild. That was a fun one.
I remember I had in my Ranger, my 2002 Ranger that had the long travel kit and everything in it, was the Sony screen that came out of the I guess it was in that truck. I think it was a double din. Anyway, it motorized out and popped up, and I had the TV tuner, and I had the antenna on my back window. So like I could be watching like Dr. Phil in my Ranger while bombing through the desert, or
awesome.
whatever. I would pick up. And I would watch TV while, I was out and about.
Yeah.
Now it's like everybody's like, they'll watch something, and the iPhones made it so easy. But man, back then it was super novel to be able to have like not just have a screen, but I'm watching TV.
Television.
Right. I remember I worked at a BMW Mercedes shop here in Huntington Beach called AutoWorks, and one of our customers had a 740 IL, and it was, I can't remember, like maybe 98 or something like that.
I was gonna say there was a code you could enter.
There was a code, but it was
activate the TV tuner.
It was only.
I never did it.
I never did it either.
Totally illegal. I never did that.
So on the dash was a little like 5-inch TV, 4-inch TV, color, and in the U.S. market, it
was
wasn't
just for nav, right?
It was for nav.
Yeah.
But because of they basically had a lockout so that you couldn't watch TV, but the German market cars could watch TV. Yep. So there was a code you could input using the phone pad, I think it was, and it would unlock it. So it only lasted 2 model years because what happened is they figured out like it was becoming a big deal because all the owners were talking about it, and they had to like lock it down. But I had a customer, and I remember when he bought that, it was a forest green metallic with like a beige interior. It was a really nice, and it was IL, it was a stretch. It was a nice car. And he's like, man, got this cool nav in here and stuff, and I'm like, oh no, wait. I think he said he's like, I wish I could watch TV. That'd be pretty cool. I'm like, oh, you can. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, there's a code.
Oh, you blew his mind.
And he's like, I'll give you $100 right now if you put it in. I'm like, sold. So did the code, and he's
Seen
like,
what we charged in Beverly Hills for that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
hey, I think I was like 18 at the time. $100 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So let's flash forward again to Define.
Yep.
You have your own shop, you do metal fabrication, wood fabrication. You're doing really kind of like what I remember when you opened that shop. You're like, I'm going to take the builds that I want to do.
Right.
You were in a position where you could pick and choose.
Yep.
And that was a wonderful luxury, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so you're able to hone your craft. You were doing everything from slammed out trucks, really high end builds for like, I feel like some of them must have been like cartel members. Like they were just throwing money at these things. But
Yeah.
like,
Oh, there's
I had
plenty
some
of
good
those.
customers. And then again,
Where the
I
briefcases
still,
of cash came in.
right. Yeah.
yeah, I still get to, oh, yeah. We like, you're thinking the one where we swapped the S55 AMG interior into a Chevy truck?
Yes.
No big deal.
Yeah,
Right.
no. Well, it's funny because back then you'd get, you worked for a small shop and you'd get a high-end car. It was either some dude who was in a band or it was somebody who was with the cartel. And
Yeah.
they would give you money. It would be cash. And I remember now I had sold my old Jeep and I had a bunch of cash, but I wanted to take it to the bank because I didn't want that to be a hit on record on my account. So when I bought my new Jeep, I asked my friend who owns the dealership, I'm like, hey, bring you cash? He goes, do not bring me cash. He's like, under no circumstances will I accept
You
that
can't
much cash.
unload
right
it. Yeah. You get the call not long ago from Stinger, right? And I want
Yeah.
you to explain how that went down and transition into what you're doing today and how that ties you into one of my favorite brands of all time.
Well, I
Audio
would
Control.
say Stinger is probably the brand that most of our listeners would be familiar with.
Yeah, it's kind of mixed. So a lot of changes. I had a lot of friends pass away in the last few years. Since COVID, and it just seems like one after another. And I was kind of down on running my shop a little bit from. I don't know. It just wears on you. You put in a lot of effort, a lot of time, and I'm a person that if I'm going after something, I'm giving it everything I got. And so I kind
Do you
of started to burn
pause
myself.
for 1 second. Holman, do you remember 3-4 years ago in Las Vegas at the SEMA show, Banks had the giant iDash,
Yes.
6 foot tall iDash on the wall, and it looked like
a real iDash.
real iDash with the screen. Gary built that. Like his attention to detail is crazy. Like, so I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
okay,
So
yeah. I built all
And now
sorts
it's
of-
in a really, really big truck.
So I was kind of down and just kind of figure out what the next move was. And I, again, like we talked about, I just kind of happened upon owning my own business. And I had turned to a couple of mentors that I really appreciate their opinion on things. And we were just kind of having a conversation, and they're like, there's a book you should read. They're like, we're not going to tell you anything about your business, but you should read this book. And it's called The E-Myth, and it's the entrepreneurship myth. And I started listening to this book, and its main point is that there's 2 ways businesses get started in the U.S., right? They are either somebody goes to business school, they learn how to operate a business, and then they go look for a place to apply those skills. Or they're a technician, whether that's a baker or a fabricator or whatever it is, and they get so focused and they're so passionate about what they do that they look at the person they work for and say, this guy doesn't get it. I can do better. And this guy's holding me back. And they go out on their own and they learn real fast that
It's hard.
that it doesn't work without both sides of it, right? And so that kind of led me to this, like, well, I'm either going to go study business and I'm going to rearrange my business and take a new path that will set me up for the future better than what I'm doing. And again, building displays and building cars because I want to, right? Like not taking it super seriously and on that side of things. Or I'll find the right place to somebody who values what I have acquired from a skill set over the years. And it just so happens a good friend of mine that I've known for a really long time, we go to dinner one night and we just start talking, and he happens to work at Stinger. Amp of America was the parent company. And he saw a potential that I could be an addition to the team. And so we just kind of started chatting here and there. And then I kind of put the word out and had been talking to a few people, and Audio Control Stinger made me an offer that sounded really good. And
There's something to be said for benefits, steady paycheck, and letting somebody else worry about a bunch of stuff so you can work on the passionate stuff. Because I'm 2 years into my experiment, and it's like, man, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
really
it's
hard.
it's definitely tough. And again, part of that with like the friends passing away and stuff is that I amassed a lot of, I mean, you'd seen my shop. I had a lot of equipment. I have a lot of junk that I've acquired through the years, 88 Acura Legends for no apparent reason.
Right.
Those sorts of things.
Great car, by the way.
Yeah. So I had all this stuff, and I'm like, just imagine if something happened to me, right? And what am I going to, I can't even imagine my wife having any understanding of how to get rid of all this stuff and all that. And they walked in, and they basically acquired a lot of the assets of the business and gave me a job.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. So
They weren't just hiring you as an employee. They actually bought your business.
yeah, they not technically bought the
Okay.
business, bought some of the assets of the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's unusual.
Kind of
Yeah.
sweetens the deal a little bit.
yeah, and so my role is director of audio, which is basically leading the audio team, which is amps, speakers, sound processors, vehicle-specific enclosures, that kind of stuff. Subwoofer enclosures in general, and just kind of overseeing the product development and the roadmap for the future. I have a very clear path of where I want to take, the brands and what I think is important for audio, not just today, but in the future as the cars continue to develop. It's definitely, there's a lot going on, and it's not getting easier. And I think that there's a lot of work that can be done to provide a better audio experience in a vehicle. From a technical aspect, if we do our job right. And so it's really easy for companies to just go out there and make a speaker or make an amplifier. But
Well, who are you selling it to, and why is the $1 million question. If you make another speaker, it's like, does the new guy with a brand new Acura or a brand new Silverado truck, does he actually need it? Because he, it's like that's the case you're going to have to make in a second. But before we go down that, I want you to explain the difference of the brands, and then I want to segment them, and let's talk through audio, because what Audio Control does and what Stinger does is kind of different.
yeah, so Stinger, some people might recognize the name from wiring and basically the power distribution aspect, batteries. We sell a whole lot of battery isolator relays. So guys that are doing overlanding, anything that's got a dual battery setup, even the guys doing hydraulics, right? The giant 200 and 500 amp relays. That's one of our big sellers on that side, along with the premium, wire, all the 0-gauge, 4-gauge wire, all the connectors, that kind of stuff. We also own a brand called Pack, which does.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's forgot Ambulance Pack.
Yeah. So
Pack makes every converter box you can imagine.
Yeah,
They'll take anything to transfer this to that. It's just, they do all the steering wheel control systems.
Yeah, steering wheel controls was their first big thing.
Yeah.
was integrating with those
Because
cars.
when those cars got those secondary controls, nobody wanted to pay for a luxury car and then have buttons that didn't work.
Right, yeah.
So they're like, I don't like this audio system, but the hell with you if you think you're taking away my buttons that I paid for.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you think about it, back in the day, there were cars that had tape decks and
Yeah.
steering wheel controls.
crazy.
And people wanted a CD player, but they didn't want to lose the steering wheel controls.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is what launched them. The product today that keeps them super relevant is they make a device called the Amp Pro. And so the Amp Pro is for any of the newer vehicles, mostly amplified systems.
You'll find one in my TRX right in the front yard of Holman's house right here.
Yeah.
I have an Amp Pro in my truck.
Don't leave it there, okay?
So what happens is a lot of the newer audio systems, when you're interfacing with the screen in the dash, that's not actually the brain of the radio. The brain of the radio can be a separate box, and then a lot of times there's a separate amplifier in the car. And what they've learned is that if they can keep that signal digital between the amplifier and the head unit, that they can avoid noise issues, and they gain some reliability and some sound quality there.
So one of the very first cars that threw that wrench into it was the Ford Taurus, when the oval one, was it the third generation one, and it had this big round center stack that was all organic shaped and looked like a catfish and all that. The interior's real swoopy. But in that, it had the audio and HVAC controls, but the head unit and all the amps were in the trunk or someplace separate.
Yeah, so the amplifier was separate, and then if you wanted to replace the radio, you had to wire around the amplifier and bypass.
So that was a big deal because everybody went, well, Ford's always been DIN or double DIN or whatever. No, put the what is it, the coat hanger hooks in and pull the chassis out, and now you have this big oval oblong thing where all these secondary controls for the entire vehicle control reside,
Yep.
and it's not as simple as just swapping out a unit like it used to be.
Yeah, yeah. So now the big issue has been, like, let's say you have one of these cars that has the separate amplifier and it has this digital signal. You want a way to take advantage of that, so you have clean signal. And so PAC makes a piece called Amp Pro. It goes basically in line in between the radio and the factory amplifier, and it sits on the bus system of the car, so it can read commands. It retains chimes, and all that information allows you to adjust levels. Like, some guys will add an amplifier to one of those systems. They'll grab the output from the factory amplifier and then re-amplify it, and then the chimes come through, and it's the most obnoxious thing you've ever heard. It turns a lot of people off doing audio. So these boxes basically are the good parts of a head unit. It's like buying an old school, really nice head unit that has clean outputs. And so those boxes have either a Toslink digital fiber optic output to go into a sound processor, or the RCA outputs that would be like an aftermarket amplifier with really clean output. And it maintains all the factory stuff, all the, if you have, sometimes they have to grab the microphones for Bluetooth, hands-free calls, and the backup sensors, that kind of stuff. So that's what PAC's doing these days, is not just working on the radio replacement, which is becoming less and less for PAC, because most people don't want to get rid of the nice screen in the car. If you get an entry-level car, there is a chance you want to upgrade the screen. Mm-hmm. But anything 2022 and up, like, they're mostly coming with really nice screens, and so you just want clean audio out of that.
You've got Stinger, which also has head units now as well.
So Stinger does. They started with the Elevate, the High 10, and now Horizon.
What's
10.
the one that you had in your Toyota pickup?
I had a High 10.
A High 10.
And that's just
because that was really cool.
And it was big in the Wrangler JK space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alpine also had a replacement. It's kind of like Stinger and Alpine were like the two replaced the whole head unit deal. But the nice thing is it all attached into CAN bus, so you could see other parameters from your off-road pages and things. And then they've evolved with their new Horizon setup for the JL and some other stuff.
Yeah, so the Horizon setup goes to like a bonded screen face, so it's more water resistant, and that just launched, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. That doesn't fall under my
understood. But I remember when I got
but-
in your Toyota and it had a freaking volume knob, and I was like, "This is the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever," because they're all going away from volume knobs,
Yeah,
right?
I can't live with that.
I don't know, a bunch of people bringing them back because customers have been clamoring.
They did, and it's actually pretty good size. It was like, man, I feel like it was an inch around in diameter.
Yeah.
Like, it was good size, real tactile. Let's get on to audio control.
Yep.
I always knew audio control. Really, the name says it all. It wasn't just amplifiers. It was sound processing. They
Yeah.
made amplifiers, for quite some time.
Yep.
But
it
even
was-
back in this is the 1980s. Me, Little Lightning, standing outside Speakerworks in Orange, California, looking at all of the audio control. Yeah, exactly. Like, literally, which is the guy with the red hair? It's
Eric.
Eric. It was
Calderon.
Eric.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
We used to have a hell of a car audio poker game Eric was a part of.
Okay, so watching Eric pour hours and hours over changing all of the configurations of the audio control in the trunk of all these cars, and just dialing it in. And that was the beginning of equalization. And there was always crude equalization, but this was really dialing in every speaker. And I had never seen the audio control would be like, you could take a left and right in to an audio control, one of these sound processors, and then have like 16 outputs or more. And every single one is not only independently EQ'd, but you're changing the crossover slope, you're changing the crossover, the frequency, the Q, like everything was you could manipulate in those early days. And they've kind of stuck with that this whole time. They're still kind of the kings of audio processing.
Yeah, so their start was huge. They did home and car in the beginning, and the car stuff really focused on the analog EQs, and pretty much every competition car in the 80s and mid 90s had an audio control, EQL, EQT, EQS, like everybody was using audio control for processing. the processing power has changed to where I consider that kind of like the carbureted version of tuning, where now everything is the fuel injection style, where we plug in with a laptop, we're looking at real-time analyzers, we're looking at frequency response, we're looking at phase, and we can make an engine run much, much better. I mean, this is your day job now, right? Like this is that world. And so the tuning has come so far. And so Audio Control makes some digital processors in the last few years, has branched out to do, after the acquisition and they became part of Stinger, the lines have been expanded, and now we're doing speakers, subwoofers, a couple lines of amplifiers that we're launching. We've had amplifiers with digital sound processing built in, the D-series amplifiers, since about 2016, along with the LC amplifiers. And this year we're launching, since I've been there, it's been a busy 9 months, but we're about to launch 2 new lines of amplifiers.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah. So it's been, they just threw me right in and said sprint.
When you come into a company like this and they're launching new products, I mean, again, Audio Control is known for really high-end processing. And they say, we want to launch more amps and speakers. You're like, well, where do those fit in? Are these going to be the Bentley? Are these going to be the Toyota? Are these going to be, like, where do they fit? What market are they trying to attack?
Yeah, so Audio Control has been known in 2 spaces. We're not like a normal car audio brand. We've always been this kind of quirky, fun brand, and there's been 2 sides of it. One is that sound quality competition, high-end audio side, and the other side of it has been based around the best-selling audio processor of all time, the Epicenter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Epicenter bass restoration processor is geared towards a totally different audience, but is by far the most popular audio control product. We sell a lot of them. And so Epicenter is a bass restoration processor. It looks at the fundamental frequency, and then it adds harmonics an octave below and an octave above. And so it increases energy. Yeah. So by doing that, you can there's a lot of music, like a lot of 80s and early 90s rap that you would think has a ton of bass to it, and it doesn't. It's really strong at 50 or 60 hertz. And these days, with how big and powerful amplifiers and subwoofers have gotten, people really like the super low bass.
Dude, listen to Licensed to Ill by the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
With a stock stereo system, it's weak sauce.
Yeah.
You really got to pump, like, Ryman and Steelin does not hit.
Yeah. Maybe we'll throw an Epicenter in your truck.
So this is where, no, I'm not saying I want that. I'm like, I don't know.
Yes, he is.
But
yes, he is.
No, I'm not. I'm not familiar with it enough.
It's fun, but it's a different world. Car audio it's like cars, right? Like there's guys that like to drag race. There's guys that like to drive around in circles. There's guys that like to road race. There's a lot of different kind of avenues for that, and they're all fun. Like I don't think anybody in car audio is super judgmental. Nobody's like sticking their nose up because they're like, hey, you like bass? Because I think deep down inside, even the hardest sound cue competitor guys that I know, friends of mine, they still like to get, I like
the breath big bass away. And I cannot lie.
Exactly.
It's funny that on Instagram, the last like 3-4 days, I don't. It's as if they knew we were going to have you in. I have been served so many car audio windshield breaking videos where they just blast out the windshield, and the windshield looks like a piece of cloth the way it vibrates.
Yeah, it's crazy. These guys are back in the day, I competed SPL for a few years, and we were,
for those of you that don't know, SPL is sound pressure level.
Yep.
And that is just volume, right?
Put a mic in the car, how loud can it get?
Right.
And we thought we were crazy because we were running 2 2,200 watt amplifiers per woofer, right?
So wait a minute, per woofer?
We thought 4,400 watts of
what
woofer
size
was
woofer?
crazy.
18s?
15 inch.
15s.
Yeah, so 8 2,200 watt amps.
But
on
wait a
four-
minute, what kind of
four
speaker
woofers.
will take that? That's more than you'd have at a concert hanging above your head at Motley Crue. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is ungodly power.
Back then, that was insane, right? These days, they've got 20 and 30,000 watt amplifiers they're putting on each driver for the guys that are going nuts.
That's to arc weld with. That's not to play music. I don't even
It's not the
understand.
most efficient way of doing it. But
That's
for the guys
that's
that are,
called sonic welding.
Yeah, right.
yeah. So I mean, it's how extreme. How far has drag racing come in the last? 30 years?
Hold on a second. You have to make the most incredibly inefficient woofer,
Right.
to soak up that kind
To
of power,
handle the power.
It's the opposite of the horn we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. The two things that have helped that is that power has become less expensive. The amplifier, although the technology or the circuit design hasn't changed drastically, the component level costs have come down, and the Class D switching has gotten better and better. And so they're being able to make more and more efficient amplifiers. The other side of that is battery technology, right? Like these guys are all running lithium now, right? Some of them are running sodium. Like it's a lot easier to provide that power. Back then we're running around with, Trojan 8-volt golf cart batteries, wired in series. So we had 16 volts and, trying to make power for under a couple grand. And now these guys can buy they're buying raw cells and building banks themselves. And it's pretty wild what those guys are doing. So looping that all the way back around, when we went to design 2 new lines of amplifiers, we wanted one that went with the Epicenter crowd, right?
Okay.
So
Bass.
one that's super focused on compact size and efficiency and watts per dollar, right? How many watts per dollar? Because you remember back in the day, it was $1 a watt, right? Like you had a 400 watt amp, it was $400. That was how you knew you're going to get an amp. And so we have a new line of amps that's made to go with the Epicenter. It's called Epic, is the amplifier line. A 750 watt, 1,000 watt, 1,500 watt, 2,000 watt monoblock. But compared to days of old, the 2,000 watt monoblock is $299.
Oh, geez, how prices have come down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's a simple, basic extrusion chassis. And the one kind of cool part that I like about it is that every time somebody wires a sound processor into their system, we'll see guys that take the Epicenter power leads and they'll kind of try to sneak it in with their power wire into the amplifier, and it's never quite clean. So we actually put a plug on the side of the amplifier that feeds the constant power, the remote turn on, and the ground for the Epicenter plugs
Smart.
right in.
So they all
comes
daisy
with the
chain
amp.
together.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, and then the Epicenter puts out 10 volts, so we made sure the amplifier took 10 volts of input. They're just kind of mated well to work together. And, we sell a lot of those in Mexico. The Epicenter is insanely
I'll
popular
bet you
in Mexico.
South Florida.
Yeah. And a lot of the Latin music, like it just doesn't have the low bass, so the Epicenter adds it right back in. So that's how we kind of are trying to make something for that crowd. And then the other line, which is what we're going to put in your truck, is called Altitude. And I'm gonna hand you one right now.
Oh,
you get to see it for the first time.
Oh,
All right.
dude,
That's pre-production.
there's
Hold on a second. This is
a
weighty.
big, hefty box.
Hold that. Just for a second. That's heavier than I expected.
Yep, that's heavy. So
That's
the
got
box is
some-
probably like
I feel like that's like 18 pounds.
2 feet by 10 inches, something like that.
All right, you open it.
All right, check it out. So this is a nice piece of kit right
So
here.
on the what are we looking at here? This is an A 1500. What is that?
1500.1.
1500.1.
15.0. Okay, so this is a. So what does the 0.1 mean? What take me
one
through
channel. So 1500 watts.
Monoblock.
1500 watts is its maximum rated power. Amplifier ratings are
that. So there's RMS, root mean squared. What's like the
By the
average,
way,
right?
this is a great looking amplifier. It's extruded. It does have the heatsink fins on it, but they aren't the focal point of the amp. Looks kind of modern and smooth, whereas a lot of them you'll just see and they're all heatsink fins on it. And this thing is like really
it's
really nice looking.
classy, clean,
Very clean.
super sleek.
So again, this is 1500 watt sub an amp you'd run subs off of.
Yep. So the way
And
they
a
rate
mono
amplifiers is kind of all over the board. Back in the day, it was, we used to have a lot of what we'd call cheater
Damn, that thing
amplifiers.
weighs.
I know it's a chunk right there.
Mackerel. Okay,
It's
I'm
a chunk.
listening.
So back in the day, everybody made a cheater amp. It was 50 watts by 2 at 4 ohms at 12 volts. So that's basically saying at low battery voltage into the easiest load you could push, it's going to put out 50 watts. But by the time you load a bunch of woofers on it, that same amp could do 600-700 watts, right? What has ended up selling well in amplifiers is putting the biggest number you can on the box, right? So you'll see the swap meet brands will say 3,000 watts, peak power. And you go to look and it's like a burst test and the amplifier can do 3,000 watts for like half a second.
Bring that box up here. What I'm noticing out here is one channel amp.
Yep.
And it's 1500 by one channel at 1.3 ohms.
Yep.
But they also have 1200 watts at 2
2
ohms
ohms.
or 600 watts at 4 ohms. So depending on how you have your setup set up, you kind of have an idea of where this amp
So
will land.
you're running like 210s in series. You're 2 4-ohm 10s in series. You're at 2 ohm.
No, 8.
You're at the other way around. Parallel. The
Yep.
half. I forgot.
Yep, parallel would
That's
be
right.
2 ohms. So so those ratings can be all over the board. And what the industry standard has kind of become is rating at 14.4, which is what an alternator generally puts out. That's changing these days a little bit on some
Especially
cars.
the variable stuff.
Yep, at 14.4, and then at 1% distortion. And back in the day,
I thought it was, or was it used to be 1% or 0.1%?
no, it's 1. Is
1%
what they've been
total
doing
harmonic
for-
distortion,
yeah,
right?
yep.
THD. Yeah, I remember that.
So it's so tough to compare. Like if I was a consumer walking in and I see, brand A sitting over here and it's $99 for a 1,000-watt amplifier and it says, and you're like, well, how come that one's $100 and this one over here is $1,000? It's because a lot of people are not super honest about the way they rate things. So
Sounds kind of like dyno numbers in the performance game.
Sure
of
is.
Your day
Yep.
job.
Yeah. I mean, somebody who hits 1,000 horsepower.
There's max, there's peak to peak, there's how many times did you average 3 runs? No, is it an anomaly? Did you do it? Did you test it on a really cold day, a hot day? Was there humidity? Was the hood up? Was the hood down? There's so many ways of testing. At the end of the day, the dyno sheets all look the same. Like you print out of the Mustang dyno, the like whatever kind of dyno you have, DynoJet, and you hand the customer that they believe it because it's printed on paper. But you could have totally manipulated those stats.
Yeah, it's the same way too with the amplifier rating. So audio control's always been one to underrate their stuff. So if you see the number on the box, it's going to at a minimum perform to that. And
there's also YouTube now, and there are guys that test these things, and there wasn't in the 80s. So now, if you lie, someone can call you out. And they may on YouTube. They'll go in and they've got a test rig. I see that.
So
there's
there's a device called the Amp Dyno, which was Tony Diamore, who used to be at Rockford. And Rockford had a device back in the day called the Power Cube, which was kind of like a 3D view into amplifier power and how it performed under load. And so he's made this device called an Amp Dyno. It's kind of interesting if you want to check out an amplifier just to see, hey, is it doing what it said it would do? You can check out those. There is some, again, there's variance, just like a dyno for a car, and depending on what the battery and power supply setup is, whether it can hold the 14.4. So always peek at that number and see. You might say, oh, it performed not quite as good, but the guy might not have had a battery bank. So you can see on the screen, it'll dip down into 12 or 13 volts, and the amplifier will put out more power when it has more voltage. Also look the other way. Some guys might be pumping up the voltage a little higher than they should to make sure it makes numbers. But there's a couple guys. Williston Audio is really good. Old School Car Audio. He does a really good job and has a really nice setup. He's probably the most popular doing those dynos. You can see, I think he's got a couple of the audio control ones on there. Stinger Audio is our direct-to-consumer brand, just the bare bones. We want to make power for a great price. Go look up some of those videos, and we have some amps that you'd be blown away about how much power you can get out of those for that price. Great stuff. So with Altitude Series, we wanted to make sure that it would put out that power continuous without thermaling and
I was going to ask a couple of questions about this. What does the line look like? Do you have a full system? It's not just a monoblock? And then how do you handle heat? Because we've all owned, if you're into car stereos, you've owned an amplifier. Maybe you've put it under the back seat in the truck. You put it against the back wall of the truck. You've put it, who knows where you've hidden it, and it's overheated. There are some different ways that you guys can reject that heat out of the fins to the atmosphere, or some use fans. I had one in my kid's Scion XB, and had a fan in it, and the fan was obnoxiously loud, but it still got really hot. Other ones that are digital amps don't get hot. Like, can you talk us through some of that?
So amplifiers get hot. There's no way around it, right? They're gonna produce heat. The harder you run them, the more heat. It's just like again, we're right back to the car analogy.
Yeah,
just like an engine. If you drove around pussyfooting it and never going above 3,500 RPMs, your engine's not going to run hot. But if you go around with your foot pegged to the floor all the time, it's gonna run hot. Like the cooling system can only do so much. So guys that are running their systems really hard will put fans, they'll add ventilation to it, that sort of things. But by design, there are some amplifiers, some companies out there, without mentioning any names, will roll back power, right? So they'll build an amplifier.
So they'll derate.
Well, so
they'll put out less power as they get hot.
yeah. So let's say that you have a 1,000-watt amplifier.
That's what an engine does.
Right.
Your ECM is programmed to pull power back, pull fuel back, so it doesn't overheat.
Yeah. So imagine buying a 1,000-watt amplifier. You hook it up on an amp dyno for a couple of minutes, and it puts out 1,000 watts. And then you go beat on it, and after about 10 minutes, it gets hot, and all of a sudden, it doesn't sound quite as loud. Well, it's
But it
rolling
does
back the power.
deliver the sad trombone through the speaker system.
I wish it did. Oh, so yeah, so you're paying for this power, and then if you really want to use it, it's not actually there. So some of those rollbacks are, now again, there are some that work well and can really manage that well, but there's others that just, hey, we do it for a short period of time and pull it out, and that's not cool in my book.
Take us through the what the selection is, because you've come up.
Yep.
This is your baby, right? The Altitude line.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so then what are you offering here, and what would a typical system be composed of?
This line right now is 4 amplifiers. I'm already working on the next round. This will be available within the next 30 days to the public.
Direct at Audio Control
You
on the website, or through all retailers, the whole network, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere.
Okay.
So Audio Control is sold primarily through a dealer network. We also sell direct to consumer through our website. And what's nice about Altitude is that we believe in it so much. It's backed by a 3-year warranty. If you buy it from a dealer, have them install it because we know it's done right, and you use the Stinger wire with it, you've got everything set up to make it work right. We extend the warranty to 3 years on the Altitude series. And right now it's 4 amplifiers, which is a 4-channel that is 100 watts by 4 at 4 ohms and 150 by 4 at 2 ohms. It's also bridgeable, so it's very conservatively rated at, I want to say 300. If you bridge the rear 2 channels to a subwoofer, it's real world closer to 500.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's some serious power on that little 4-channel. And then there's a 5-channel version, which is similar power. It's 90 by 4 at 4.
I love 5 channels because
it's
for
so
the simple
easy.
systems, the 5th channel goes to the sub. The 4, your 4-door speakers or whatever you got. It's just so easy.
Yeah. And so it's got a super powerful bass channel, 600 watts at 2 ohms, and we didn't put it in the manual, but if you wanted to drop it down a little more, you could drop it down.
Really?
It keeps making
Interesting.
power.
Okay.
The other thing that's really cool about that 5-channel is that a lot of guys that are doing big sound cue systems that need multiple channels, they've got a 3-way front stage. You can actually take and put a 5-channel on the left side,
Oh my God.
right? So you have
A 5-channel on the left and a 5-channel on the right?
Yep. So you have 90 watts available to a tweeter, not that you'll ever use it, 90 watts available to a mid-range, and then you can bridge the other channels. So you've got, lots of
We're
power on
talking
your
crazy.
mid-bass.
This is probably over the heads of a lot of our
Sound
listeners.
nerds.
Yeah. This is nuts.
Yeah.
So
and you keep amazing channel separation because you have completely separate
at this
amplifiers.
point, you're either a total nerd or you've gone to a good shop that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
This is beyond what most people are probably doing in their truck.
So then there's 2 monoblock amplifiers, an 800 one, which is 800 watts at 1.3, which is 3 4-ohm woofers wired in parallel. I love 3 woofer setups. Again, it'll do 1 ohm. It doesn't really put out that much more power, but that number that you see is conservatively rated, and it still has some headroom, which is saying, I always joke that, you can go 60 miles an hour down the street in a Prius, and you can go 60 miles an hour down the street in a Corvette. And if you whomp on the gas pedal on both of them, the Corvette keeps going because it has lots of headroom. The amplifiers work the same way. I always suggest buying more power than what you think you need and just being conservative with it. And that's part of the way you make it run cool. With these amplifiers, they run great at 1.3. They will not thermal. They won't have any problems.
1.3 ohms.
Yeah. 3 4-ohm woofers. But for sound quality, I prefer it in 2 ohms. Right, this amplifier will do 1,200 watts at 2 ohms all day long. It won't break a sweat, and it has so much headroom left. Like the power supply is built to do over 1,500 watts, right? And so when you're only doing it to have 1,200 watts, when there's just
Gobs the headroom.
something happens in the music, something dramatic, it comes across. It's real in that scenario because you have that headroom. And that's where a lot of guys they just get in, they just crank the gains all the way up, and most power. We talk about all the dyno stuff. It's like tuning a car to where it has this huge peak in the horsepower, but it's no fun to drive because it has no torque. It's just not consistent. It just ramps up, and there it is, and it's done.
It's kind of like a 2-stroke dirt bike.
Yeah.
It's just you have to be on the pipe or there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, wah, 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 or there's nothing downloaded. Just bro wants to die. Okay, let's change the topic a little bit and talk through. I think audio control is really, really good and known for kind of the integration that we talked about with PAC and some of the others. But the way that audio control, because we don't want to get, if you have a Uconnect in any modern Ram, in Jeep, in Holman's Jeep, that type of thing, you don't want to get rid of your head unit.
Right.
Most people, right? If they've got the mid-tier, the upper tier of whatever, Ford, all of them the same way. So what you want to do is take that signal out of your stereo. You want to get better sound.
Amp Pro.
Right. So you got the Amp Pro.
Yep.
And then you're going into the processing and the amplifiers and new speakers and out to the leaves of the tree. Right. In my case, in my truck, where I was running in the issue, and I have the Harman Kardon 19 speaker system, and I wanted, when I sat in the truck and before I bought it, and I listened to Holman's, when he had the year-long the loaner, whatever they got from when it won Truck of the Year from Motor Trend or Truck Trend. The 19 speaker sound system set was amazing to me, but as I sit in it and I turn it up a couple of times a week, I'm turning it way up. There's a point at which there's a ceiling in that system, okay? So let's say that all the digital systems, any new car, whether it's a Honda Civic or it's a TRX, it doesn't matter.
That's how my Jeep is. I have,
You'll turn it up to 30, which 30 is max, right? So it's a digital, it just goes across and counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gets a 30, 30 is loudest. But when you get to like 24 through 30, there's almost no difference. It's just there's a ceiling that they built into it, and 30 is just not loud enough.
Especially on a vehicle with the doors and top come off.
Yeah.
Especially. I don't know if they've limited the amplifier, if they've limited the voltage out of the head unit to the signal volume to the amp, or where they're limiting it, but it is limited in certain places. And I will say that for most people, it probably is enough volume. But there are songs that I'm out of headroom.
Yeah.
And I know that when the bass hits or I get a really amazing saxophone, it just doesn't cut the way that I remember being at that truck at Speakerworks in the 80s. And that sound rips through me. And I'm like, not to the point where you're going to hurt your ears, but you're like, I'm at a concert. I'm watching this band, at an amphitheater, and it just you feel every pluck of the guitar, and I can't reproduce that in my truck, despite the fact I have 19 freaking speakers.
Right. So there's a couple of things going on there. What the OEM systems struggle with is making power. They have a simplistic formula where an amplifier basically boosts voltage and then has a current capability. That current draws base. We keep talking ohm load. It's probably not something everybody knows about. I think of it every day, so it's common to me. But the speakers are drawing current out of the amplifier. It supplies voltage. They're current or voltage amplifiers, and we are sucking current out of them with the speakers. So the factory struggles with the drain on the electrical system and stepping up that voltage in the car. So what they do to compensate is they just add more of these lower power channels. You have all of these speakers because it's very easy for them to supply 15, 20 watts to 19 speakers.
Yeah, and at 50% volume, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And they take advantage of every bit of tuning capability, right? Like the processing that's built in, even if you don't have an amplifier in a car, the processing that's built into the radio now is absolutely insane. So
there's a lot. It does bug me that I only have bass, mid, and treble. I'm like, you gave me 19 speakers, but they dummy proofed it dude, oh my God, I get into trucks at work that have the same system, and the guys just mess up the bass and treble so badly. I'm like, how are you listening to this? It's freaking dog mush. It's awful.
Yeah.
But so people, I guess, if they gave people more control, people would screw it up.
Well, and don't forget, I know while we're on the topic with the factory systems, don't forget there's also a bunch of games they're playing too with, for example, on a Jeep, limiting the power output so the speakers above your head, even though they're rated for the same amount of power per channel, they dumb it down because they don't want the NVH and buzzing issues and rattles, because then it becomes a warranty issue for them.
Yep.
So they'll advertise this 500, 750,000 watt system, but they never let you get that power in some of these vehicles because they don't want it to be a perceived quality issue if it rattles the interior parts. And so there's artificial stops in there. There's, just you go down the list. You've got noise cancellation.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got the white noise that's being pumped pumped out, opposite of what's coming out of your stereo to kill some of the unwanted sounds, but it also mutes the inside. Like I remember when Lightning and I sat in a brand new 2019 Ram Limited with the 19 speaker big system, and he could pick up of when he was talking how the noise cancellation system was trying to compensate for that.
It was freaking me out.
Yeah.
It was so noticeable that they were doing noise cancellation. Every time I would stop speaking, it would counterbalance so aggressively. It felt like I was in a isobaric chamber.
Yeah.
It was like it was silence, like unnerving silence. I couldn't hear anything outside. I'm like, it's broadcasting the opposite of the sound that's trying to, like road noise and everything else. Yeah. It was creepy. There's a lot of processing to make that happen.
Yeah. On the ANC side, that's one side of it. But
The ANC is active noise cancellation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then, so from the audio side, just think about sitting behind a big mixing board, right? So for every speaker, for every channel, I'll say, sometimes there's 2 speakers on one channel, but for every channel of amplification, they have the ability, and not everybody uses every inch of this, but for every click of the volume, every time you see that number go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, they can change the frequency range they're sending to a speaker, right? So they can change the crossover point every time they click that knob.
Interesting.
Right? They can apply compression and limiters that can vary with every click of that knob. They can change equalization with every click of that knob. So what happens is, as you bring that volume control, they're tapering off the low bass frequencies to limit the movement of that speaker, right? That's why we build like the Amp Pro that gets rid of all of that processing, so you can start clean again with fresh, clean
Just
signal.
a free and clean slate. Yeah.
Yeah. The other side of it, you get into some of these scenarios like 19 speakers, and you've been in enough rooms where you heard even a pair of speakers, and you move around the room and you hear the cancellation that happens between 2 speakers. And sometimes those speakers blend together and sometimes they cancel each other out. Now, multiply that times 19 different interactions. So as you move your head around the car, what they're trying to do is give you a good spatial average of the frequency response, but you move closer to one speaker and you've thrown off the relationship between the two, and now some frequency is canceling.
Right.
No matter what delays you add, how you do it, that always less is more, right? Like nothing sounds as natural as a pair of speakers.
I don't know. Like you're talking about, who did we just announce the other day that the new Mark Levinson 27 speaker system?
Probably
It was
the Lexus.
Lexus.
Mark.
Like they just keep throwing more and more speakers. On the manufacturer side, and we didn't talk about this, like any of the brands that you've worked with or for, developing for OEs, because you worked at Alpine, and Alpine is Alps and Alpine, and they would do all sorts of OE systems. Yep. I cannot imagine the time and energy that went into those systems.
Right. And even going back, that was almost 20 years ago, I was at Alpine, and they were still, that type of digital sound processing was in some of those factory cars back then.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's gotten easier and less expensive, and the OEs also realized that there was demand for premium systems, because again, the average system today is night and day better than it was.
I remember my dad used to have Hondas back in the day, and he used to always bitch, "There's no bass in this car," right? And like they sounded okay, but I remember the first time that his friend Al brought a brand new, when they first came out, a Lexus LS 400.
Yeah.
And it was probably the most, up to that point, was that what, 1989, 90?
Yeah.
That was probably at that point the most mind-blowing factory audio system that you could get. And here it is in a $30,000, $35,000 car that rivals $90,000 European cars from this Japanese company that says, hey, we're going to start this new luxury brand. Now, of course, Lexus has gone on to be as big as it is. But I remember him, and he's an audiophile, listening on his Mark Levinson back in the late 80s, early 90s in that car and being like, whoa, this is incredible.
And to this day, Lexus does a very good job with the OEM systems. I mean, that's about as good as it gets from the stuff that I've heard. Mercedes, they're kind of hit and miss, but they have some good ones.
Is audio control involved in any OE stuff?
No.
Okay. No. Just pure aftermarket?
Yeah, it just kind of started as a passionate small brand that did fun stuff.
And by the way, I'll just add this. You may have a brand name on your OE audio system, and there's like 3 companies like Panasonic, Sony, and a couple of who actually develop the system, and then there's a licensing agreement with whatever company comes on there.
I think it's been long enough that I can say this. I think one of the most interesting things I ever found out when I worked at Alpine was that we manufactured a Bose logo. Was a part we manufactured.
Are you kidding
me? And it's
me?
because we did the radio, but Bose did the amplifier and the speakers in the car, and they wanted the Bose logo on the radio that we manufactured. Alpine wasn't on it anywhere. Like maybe on the sticker, like if you pull the radio out of the dash. But I'm like, that's just wild
That's
to me. Like
lame too.
There's weird stuff. There's a lot of that where there's one name that you see, but they don't actually build anything for it.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they will be involved in the tuning and the sound signature of the vehicle.
Right. Okay. Going back to the stuff here, and I appreciate you spending the time. This has gone much longer than I expected, but I mean, hopefully you guys are still tuned into this because I am infinitely fascinated. This is my world. So if you're not into car audio, you've long since tuned out. But if you're into car audio, I'm stoked that you're still here with me.
Yeah.
You've still got your stereo that you're not going to get rid of because now it's integrated and it's a beautiful, color LCD system in your dashboard. You've decided the speakers are just not good enough. There's not enough volume for me, for my taste. And you're going to start replacing. How do you go about this? How do you, of course, you can go into a stereo shop.
Yeah.
But you need to have some idea of what you're looking for because you don't want to go in there and have the guy just like, it's going to be 15 grand. You're like, oh God, sticker shock. So talk me through like some basics of how do you know what to ask for and what type of system are you going to like, you're going to pull the factory amp out of there.
Sometimes,
right?
Sometimes
not.
So yes.
And then you're going to go. So take me through the processing, the amp, and the speakers.
Yeah. So my suggestion to somebody who has an OEM system and they think it's close, but they need a little more out of it. My suggestion would be to always start with a subwoofer upgrade. By adding bass to the car, it's not that you're gonna or the truck. It's not that you're trying to overwhelm the rest of the speakers. Is what it lets you do is you can turn the bass down on the factory radio so that your door speakers are not trying to be subwoofers, and then let that subwoofer roll in the bottom end, which will make the sound fuller, and you'll be able to go up a couple more clicks because you're not trying to drive the door speakers so
you don't
hard.
get that distortion out of the door speakers.
Yeah,
basically.
that's the biggest bang for the buck upgrade. And there's a lot of ways to interface. There's another device we call Sub Pro, which is just like an Amp Pro, but it's made just to pull the signal out for the subwoofer.
That's a pack or an audio control pack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the same company. Eventually, the way I see it is that we will all be one harmonious group that provides solutions that are packaged together.
Gotcha.
Right? That gives you everything you need to do those installs. That's where we're headed.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. So there are some interface devices. So in addition to that, we make our LC interfaces, which are like active high to low converters. So back
Does that
in the
stand
day,
for something, LC?
LOC, line output converter.
Line output converter.
Yeah,
Got
line
it.
converter.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have some. Here's the other thing. With all of those crazy amplifier DSP chips, they've integrated a lot of safety features where the radios, when they boot up, or the amplifiers boot up, are looking to see that the speakers are all functioning properly, and they actually send a little signal out.
No kidding.
They read the resistance on it and say, yes, the speaker's working well, everything's good.
Not in GM apparently, because since like day number 2 of the truck at work, we got a 2500. And the rear speakers have never played right. And
Really?
we've brought it in the GM a couple times, and they just shrug. And I don't think we've spent a whole lot of time and energy on it, but like what an awful system that
Bose?
Yeah, it's
No highs,
Bose.
no lows.
But the speakers in the back doors don't even work. I'm sure
Wow.
it's the amplifiers at dud or
Sounds
something.
like your kid's Mazda.
Well, those just didn't have. Do you know that in like the new Mazda 3s, Gary, there's no speakers in the rear doors at all. No, there's literally just a hole. They don't even install
Yeah,
speakers
that's
anymore.
wild.
And the amplifier doesn't have the channels. Now on the head unit, you can fade to rear. They still left it in there, and there's just nothing. there.
Oh, that's
I took a
wild.
flashlight. I look in the doors. I'm like, did they forget? And I call my buddy at Mazda. He goes, no. Starting last year, they don't put speakers in the rear doors anymore.
On the
Did
base
you call
model.
Matt?
On the base model.
What's that?
Did you call Matt?
Yes, of course.
On the
yeah.
base
Matt also
model.
worked at Gold Star, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
With us,
Okay.
yeah. It's
Gotcha.
crazy how many people are connected through
Yeah.
all of that stuff. You know the other one that I worked with at Circuit City?
No.
Mike Finnegan.
Mike Finnegan.
Yeah, he and I were
funny.
putting radios in dashes.
I should take a picture
Yep.
and send it to him.
He said,
Started-
look who I ran into. Yeah, Mike's a frequent guest on the show.
His first mini truck was my fault, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah, ask him about that. Yeah, it's just wild how many people out of that group of people. I've been extremely fortunate to just come up with this group of people that have all done well for themselves. And I think it's because all of us were contributing and all of us were super driven. And Matt, who's at Mazda, like so many connections that we all have.
We
from
need to get
this
Matt on the show. So Matt, we haven't talked about him on the show, but he's one of the higher ups in I think it's called the man-machine interface, right?
HMI,
human machine interface. Yeah, sorry.
By the way, he's the guy that makes the volume knobs, just so you know.
So some of those radios will look and they'll say, hey, I don't have a speaker attached. I'm going to shut off that output. So what happens is some of these guys take their cars to a stereo shop or their buddy puts in the stereo and they're like, well, I hooked up the amp, but I don't have any output. And that's because the protection circuit's kicking in. It's saying there's no load here. So we actually make devices.
Oh, it's like when you put an LED where there used to be a halogen light.
Exactly.
And now it gets a hyper blink.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we make a load generating device. So it's basically like a resistor and some of them have a Zoll network.
It's just the same thing you'd put on a light bulb.
So we have some of that built into some of those active line output converters. We also have some that have AccuBase, and that AccuBase will allow you to, as the factory radio is shelving that bass response and turning it down as you turn up the volume, you can set it to pick a point where it starts adding boost back in so that
it's
it levels that.
compensating. Interesting.
So we have a lot of products like that are made to help that
Trick 'em.
interface. Yeah. Yeah.
You're
work
literally
around it.
just identifying all the problems and solving them.
Yeah. Just, that's where PAC got its start, and audio control kind of similarly. We had a lot of products when we became under the same umbrella. There were a lot of products that was like, oh, well, you did that really cool, and you did that really cool. Let's put them together and do that. So that's kind of fun for the future of things too. And so definitely start with the bass upgrade. That's number one. The second step I'd say focus on front speakers. When I'm doing big audio, and we'll just say 10K plus into an audio system, I don't put rear speakers in a car unless somebody forces me to.
How are you getting the rear fill? You're just tricking them with signal processing?
Well,
The
again,
speakers aren't that bad. I've had a couple of vehicles where you replace the front speakers and they sounded really good. And you're like, I can do the same. If I just do the back ones, it'll be the same. And it's not.
It's not. Yeah. So if you have real surround processing, that is a totally different animal. And most cars, one thing that a lot of new cars do have is if you have an actual center channel and actual processing.
I do.
Right? Then you can stabilize a center image. Again, it depends on how tweaky you get into this. I know you're way more tweaky than the average, right? Where most of my customers are guys that are musicians, spend time in a studio, play instruments. Those are the guys that seek me out, right? And we're looking to recreate a soundstage accurately. Most people, I would say 95% of the people that are looking for an audio upgrade are concerned with volume and tonality. They're not looking to make sure that they can sense that the singer is a foot and a half in front of the guitar player on the soundstage, right? They're not looking for that. Can we do that? Yes, we can, right? But most people don't see the value in what that takes to do. Once they hear it, they want it. So the goal is to try to deliver that experience to as many people as we can and hopefully bring the cost in doing that down. So if you have a car and you think, hey, I need more volume, then the next setup is replacing the front speakers and adding power. And if you are taking out a factory amplifier, you want to have a digital sound processor and someone who knows how to tune it. My suggestion is always, if you walk into a stereo shop and you're considering pulling out factory components around a factory amplified system, the shop is not talking to you about a digital sound processor, leave.
Get a new shop.
Okay. Yep. It is by far and away, again, to go from a carbureted experience to a fuel injected experience. The digital sound processor is the only way to get better sound than what you had. You can make it louder, but you're not going to make it sound better.
Does that mean that I'm going to pay through the nose because they know how to use a laptop and adjust that signal processing, or can that be economical? Can that be a reasonable price? Do I spend an extra $2,500, $5,000 to have a shop have that experience and that knowledge, or does that just tack another $1,000 onto my bill? Where does that lie?
I'm going to shoot this right off the top of my head, but I would say that if you're going in for a subwoofer upgrade and let's say it's a truck, that's most of your guys' listeners here, you're going to spend somewhere between $200 to $1,000 on an amplifier installed. Well, $200 is a little cheap for install.
It's installed.
Let's say $300 to $1,000 on an amplifier installed, based on quality, how much power you're putting. That's kind of the range. And then woofers and a subwoofer enclosure, you're going to be somewhere between, $300 and, upwards of $1,500, $2,000. My buddy Chris at MTI makes some beautiful boxes that are,
The guys out of Texas.
yeah, $3,000-$4,000 on a crazy, lit up, plexiglass enclosure and that kind of stuff. That's not what the average guy needs. We make a line of boxes under Stinger that we have like 14 to 19 or 14 to 18 GMC, and then 19 and up GM Silverado and Sierra. Then we have, like 15 and up F-150. They're
Do you have Rams?
$600-$700. Rams coming.
Okay.
Not your Ram though.
Yeah. So, that's a weird one. I have one of your competitors' boxes. We've had them on the show before, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'll have to play it for you. See
Yeah. They make very nice boxes.
It's a real. I was very impressed. Yeah. Honestly, when I got it, I thought, but you did. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be okay. And I was like, wow, this is the construction, the actual physical construction, the tonality of the box really surprised me.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you go with a prefabricated box in a best case scenario, you're probably spending realistically $900 to $1,500 to get some woofers in the truck and get that first step of an upgrade. If you go through and you're adding, an interface device to get clean signal, you're adding a digital sound processor, you're adding amplifier channels, you're replacing speakers, you're going to be a few grand into it to do it right. So I would say that like the kind of entry level to get what sounds as good as a factory system and has the volume and is tuned, you're probably in that like $3,000 to $6,000 range is where you're starting, and you can definitely go up from there. I mean, we see amplifiers in this world that are 10, 15 grand a piece for hand built, Gucci.
However,
stuff.
but there's
needed
diminishing returns when you get that high, right?
100%.
So I think if you have a 2014 Silverado, you know what I mean, you're looking at a sweet spot of probably $3,000 to $4,000 somewhere in there to really make a marked difference in your sound system.
Oh yeah.
You're pulling that Bose or whatever came in their stock.
What if I'm still just listening to talk radio, AM all day long?
Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think that it really matters. The one misconception.
You're that one guy?
Yeah, that guy, and also lots of satellite radio.
KFI AM 640. It's time like it. Somebody here.
Stop doing that. Stop doing that.
Long time listener, first time caller. Hello.
Everybody just turned off the podcast. Everyone just turned off the podcast.
Still
I'm
funny.
done.
It's still funny. The one thing that happens a lot of
Flash
times.
Friday, everybody. Show us your rack. Sorry.
You're too good at that. Yeah. The one thing that happens a lot, this will happen.
Don't encourage him.
This will happen in the Chevy trucks. This will happen in the Jeeps, is that you get this speaker on the top of the dash near the glass, and you'll go on the forums and everybody would be like, oh, I pulled out this, we had this little just mid-range driver with no tweeter, and I put in these, coax speakers, and it sounds night and day better. Well, what happens is you get these what we call middlers, right? It's like a mid-range driver with no tweeter, right? And what they're doing is in that factory radio or factory amplifier, they're boosting the treble up like crazy. So then these guys put these coax speakers in that have this tweeter, right? And it just
I
turns
can hear
into,
the cymbals.
Oh, I've heard that a lot.
Oh, it's so obnoxious. And then it's so cringy for me to like
It's
read
bad for
through
you
forum
because you know
posts.
why it's happening.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I can look at a picture on Instagram and get pissed off because I'm like, there's no way that sounds good, right?
Yeah.
You can hear it through a photo. That's
I can.
funny.
It's so weird, but
Right.
and it's so
He
frustrating.
sees colors. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. I get frustrated with those types of situations. But the days of just like, hey, we pulled out the tape deck and we put in a CD player and we went from 6 watts to 20 watts and it sounded better. And I went from a paper speaker to a two-way speaker and it sounded night and day better. Those days are gone. Like, it's not
Because the
anymore
speakers are so much better now.
Well, it's that they're mated well. It's like nobody builds a motor and says like, I picked out my camshaft and I don't care what the rest of it is. right? Like it is about how well the system works together and how well
There's a reason it's
everything's
called a
made it
system.
together. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you build, you try to build one of these crazy diesel motors and you throw a 1-inch exhaust pipe on it, like nothing's
choked it.
really going to happen.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And you put a big lopey cam in there and it's not going to be fun to drive, right? It's not something you want to drive every day. Yeah. Does it get super loud or does it create a whole bunch of power at one,
RPM or something?
RPM? Yeah. But keep in mind, it's that whole system together.
And so that's what you guys are offering. I mean, you've launched, so that you've got the Altitude Amplifier Series. What are the speakers called?
PNW is
PNW.
our Pacific Northwest,
Oh,
where
interesting.
audio control was originally.
Oh,
housed.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what's the breadth of that line? You said subs all the way to tweeters?
Yeah, so that's specifically the coax and component speakers. We've done a couple of interesting things.
And again, for those of you who don't know, a coaxial means there are two speakers in the same housing, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Generally, and it's the kind we see the tweeter sitting in the middle of the other speaker. That's a coax.
Yeah, and so what we have is technically a concentric driver where the tweeter is flushed down into the cone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's how these all are designed.
And then when they talk about a two-way, those are two separate devices.
Components.
Right. You can hold a speaker in each hand, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So we have a 6.5 component set. We have a 6x9 component set. And then we also sell a 2 3/4 inch mid-range driver, which can be added in to make a 3-way component set.
Okay.
I don't know. No, but I'll just assume that my bosses won't listen to this. So I'm working on a 3.5 inch version, also for some wider applications to add in.
Okay.
To the,
so that's like all the dash
that.
applications.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that and then we sell a real deal old school crossover. They're pretty big, like this big, but it allows you to run that off of 2 channels of amplifier power, or you can biamp, triamp. With the digital sound processor and split up the frequency range for each driver, which is what we're doing in your truck.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I don't know what we're doing. This is going to be
Would you like
interesting.
the bell now?
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground here. I think to kind of zero base this, most people should, if they're looking at spending that $5,000 mark, you should consult an expert, right?
100%.
As opposed, because you can really get yourself kind of like, in not hot water. I don't want to say like you can get confused pretty quickly on what you need, and you can overspend on equipment when you don't need to. You talked about the guy that the shop that's best suited for you is one that should offer you digital signal processing very early on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, if you're a diehard do-it-yourselfer, you've got the experience, you were doing it back in the day, there's a lot of decent information on forums. There's a lot of crap on forums. If you're looking for some place to turn, call Stinger's tech support line. Tell them what vehicle you have and say, I need to interface. I need to get signal out of this. What do I do? What products do I need? And they'll guide you. A lot of times you can call Crutchfield is a great resource. Like they have a
I got to be
very
honest with you.
knowledgeable staff.
I have learned a lot on Crutchfield's website. They've got an incredible bevy of tutorials.
Yep. My buddy Mark at Car Audio Fabrication, like he has a lot of videos, a lot of informative videos. I always
Dude, that's
suggest-
quite a YouTube channel, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Car Audio Fabrication. He's really freaking good.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's right. Audio Control is one of his sponsors.
Yeah.
He's always talking about audio control.
Just do your research before you start hacking into a vehicle. We make a lot of cool parts too. Like we make a lot of T-harnesses for amplifiers now. If you need to grab signal back to your factory speakers, you can unplug the harness from the amplifier, and we've got one that plugs in, and
so you don't have to cut the wires.
It'll give you the signal, like it. Some of them on the factory radios will T-harness in, all sorts of stuff.
Fantastic. Okay, so what's the website? Where do they go for audio control?
StingerSolutions.com is for, you can get to all the brands from there, or audiocontrol.com.
Fantastic.
We'll get you right to audio control.
Fantastic. Dude, congrats on this this huge move and looking after a really storied brand that I've respected since I was probably like 13.
And congrats to you, Lightning, for the birth of a new audio system in your truck.
Right.
Yeah. I'm getting excited to get this thing going. Yeah.
I'm very excited.
It's just one more reason for somebody to steal the TRX.
I've locked it down. I don't know if you've heard any of the episodes.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yep. The other
it's
thing
been a
too
battle.
that I can't believe I forgot to mention after all this.
What's that?
The other thing we have for your truck is sound deadening. So Stinger Roadkill is our sound deadening product, and
Great name.
we got a bunch of that.
Interesting.
You should do that
does Mike
because-
Finnegan have some vested interest in roadkill?
no, he doesn't. But
Okay.
We talked to some other audio companies who don't like to do the Rams and applications. They only do what the I think it was only the floorboards or only the doors.
I can't
It
remember.
wasn't a full kit.
No,
so-
they didn't do the full
Yeah.
kit.
So-
I guess there were some issues with the door cards, which is the behind armrests on the doors. They're pretty complex.
Yeah.
So I definitely have to. I was surprised. They sound like tin cans.
Yeah.
The doors on my truck. I can tell that there is a piece of sound deadening somewhere in there, but it ain't much. And you get a lot of road noise. I'm getting some awesome. I mean, granted, my Toyo tires, my Open Country RT Trails are some of the quietest mud terrain tires that I've had. There's still a lot of noise that comes in, and the exhaust and everything else. I like to keep the noise out.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, by the time you have some snappy mid basses in those doors, those panels are going to want to vibrate. So we have to damp that down.
Yeah. Okay. And that's also available on audio control.
Stinger
audio control site, or
Solutions.com.
StingerSolutions.com. Okay. Beautiful. Dude, it's been a treat to have you in finally.
Yeah, it's fun. Can't
Thanks
believe we
for,
waited this long.
Yeah,
I know,
thanks for hanging
right?
out with us.
I feel like we go for another 4 hours. So
We
Good.
we
that
probably
just means we need
could.
to have you come back.
take questions for next time.
What we need to do is motivate you to fire up your old podcast, which is called, what is it? The old time,
The old-fashioned car audio podcast.
That's right, because you have an old fashioned drink that you
Yeah.
guys always drink
It's-
old fashions.
Oh,
or what?
it's
I want to
funny.
be on that show. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm an
All right.
old-fashioned guy.
Well, there you go.
Give
Yeah,
me a
well,
nice clear cube of ice or a ball in there.
Might have to come do it from here.
Some bitters.
Because this
Please
is way
do.
nicer than my setup.
If this show excited you,
If you made it to this point
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
episode,
Yeah.
if you made it this deep, you will love Gary. Go back and listen to some of the old episodes because they talk through some of the history that we have, and they go more in depth about some of the fantastic builds that they've all been a part of, and some of the guys.
What do you have here? Crossover, eh?
Some of the dudes that you have on the
Oh, yeah.
on the show as hosts or guests, they are like world famous installers, like the crazy amazing builds that you see on Instagram.
Yep.
That's these guys.
yeah, my co-host Matt Schaefer is an absolute animal.
He's a
doing
beast.
Crazy, crazy stuff. And that, I think it was your fault that we started that podcast. I think we were sitting. It was probably SEMA.
Oh, if lightning can do it, anyone can do
no,
it.
you're like, no, you got to do it. You got to do it. It's easy. You can do it.
Yeah.
And, and
Turns
then
out it's not that easy.
yeah. During COVID, we just got bored and we're like, I really miss those like nights after SEMA or CES and sitting at the Hilton bar
Yeah,
drinking
BSing,
old fashions
yeah,
and
totally.
catching up with the people you don't see but once or twice a year. And
Yeah, that's the best.
somehow that turned into a podcast about putting radios in cars.
Right. I love it. It was great. All right. So congratulations on getting into audio control and Stinger and the whole group of brands. I'm excited about it. I'll report back after it's done. This is going to be a big job. I don't anticipate this is
we're
going to
not
be something
getting
that
it
can
done in a
happen.
day.
No, this is not going to happen in a day.
Come by at the booth at SEMA and I'll show you the evolution of all of that stuff.
We will be
by.
there. We will be there.
Especially for the Jeep crowd.
The Jeep crowd. Oh, you can't tease him like that.
Oh, I will. I have.
Wow, that was quite the marathon interview.
Yeah.
Did you like how I just let you roll?
could spend so much more time?
And you
with
did.
him. Yeah.
And you did. Well, we'll have to have him back because obviously he is an absolute treasure trove of knowledge.
He is like OG.
Yeah.
Like he's the man.
All right. Well, let's get into some inbox.
Email, yeah.
I knew what you were gonna say.
All right.
Email, that's right. Everybody email. Type it up. You email. Proofread. I email.
Send it.
We email. Click it. Everybody email.
All right, you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, we can lead into the couple of mails I've gotten on the truck here. So, our friend Sean from Canada, SK Nelson 91 on the Instagram, wrote me, and he said, "This is my favorite." My favorite part. He goes, "Please don't buy a 6.4. As a former Ford tech,
Remember, I was telling you not to buy a 6.4.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Just let the man speak.
I'll let it
Lightning.
breathe. I'll let it breathe.
As a former Ford tech, I'd rather staple my nutsack to my kneecaps and do jumping jacks than own a 6.4. Even with bulletproofing, it's still a huge pile of shit." And I said, noted. I think gas is probably a smarter move for my use case, but have some time to ponder. finding a regular cab XLT of any year is pretty hard to start with. He says, basically, you want the Dave Chappelle truck that he's built and now sold. And I went, well, basically, yeah, damn it. And so he's like, you could find a V10 in the ZF6. And I'm like, if I'm going to go that far back, I would do the V10 manual if I could find it. Hold
on. Stop for a second, because we're assuming that people know what we're talking about.
Well, they're
you
listening.
need to recap now.
If they're
though.
listeners, they listened to the last episode.
Maybe they skipped it.
All right.
People do skip.
So I have the need for a pickup truck to move projects around and move stuff around and go up to some property.
And hold on. Let's be honest. You're jonesing for one.
No, I missed having a pickup truck. When
Right.
so when
So
I
you're
was
finding a lot of good excuses to get one.
No. Hold on. When I was at Motor Trend, I always had the long-term pickup truck. I never had the long-term SUV on purpose because I had the Wrangler and we have the wife's SUV. So I always had a pickup truck. Now that I am divorced from that lifestyle, I don't have a pickup truck except for the one that you have absconded with that's sitting under a tarp in the same warehouse that the Ark of the Covenant is from the Indiana Jones. Anyway, so I need a pickup truck at some point, and I need a truck to move stuff around, and so I really want solid axle, regular cab, long bed, 4x4. That's what I want.
Okay.
I'm not interested in the Chevys. I don't want an offset steering wheel. I don't want the problems with IFS. I don't need any of that. I like the Rams, but if I was going to do a Ram, I'd want to do a Prospector XL, and there's just no way I can afford that. And the rest of the Rams, they kind of ride pretty bad, and the interiors, I feel like are
not good.
No, they're good. They just don't age well, depending on the year.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The newer you get, they're
you're
good,
right.
but they just don't age well over time. And I do like Ford trucks a lot, and so I'm drawn to F-250, F-350. But this is what I want. Obviously, the first generation of the Super Duty, was at 99 to 04 or whatever.
Yep.
So if I did one of those, like V10 stick, but later because I don't want spark plugs shooting through the hood, or a 7.3 of that genre, and those are leaf sprung trucks, so they ride like hell, but they're super simple. And I want a truck that
you can make it
sit
ride
for a
better.
couple of months. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. Go see Deaver, put some Bilsteins on it. Life is good. But those things are so roached. They're so roached, all of them. There's like, I think
they were work trucks.
They were, and I showed you one in Arizona that would be the one to buy right now if I was going to do that. So I kind of like the update from 2005. Again, if on those I'd go gas, not 5.4. Wouldn't go the V8, V10 only. That's the only choice. Those are super hard to find. So it really puts me into the next generation, which is what is that? I guess it would be the 2005 to 11, 13?
5 to 10, because 11 to 16 is the next.
So then the second generation, that 08 to 10, I like that front end update on it. The interior updates were decent. I'd still go gas on that truck.
I think that's still the right move. Yeah.
You think so?
Yep.
That's a 6.4 Power Stroke, and I'm obviously, according to Sean, we're not doing that. Okay, so
remember we also when we were talking about going into the 11 to 16, but then you want to skip 11 to 12 because they had the dual compressor wheel on the turbo and blah blah blah.
So it's really 13 to 16. I would do the first generation 7.3 on that, but they're super expensive, like $10,000 more than the gas. But the gas goes from the 5.4, which is crap, to a 6.2. So I kind of feel like I'm looking at like 13 to 16 with a 6.2 gas V8.
Yeah, but I think you're still going to spend more money than the second gen with a.
But those are all roached. If I found a nice second gen,
Yeah.
I would pounce on it. They're not out there. They're so hard to find. So that's why I'm in discovery mode. I want to see what's out there, what's easy to find.
No, if you find one, how are you going to act on it? So this is what I was concerned with. The other night when you were blowing me up till midnight, sending me those, and it's funny because Brandy rolls over and she's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "Sean's sending me truck." She's like, it's midnight. I'm like,
and
you got to do truck things when you got to do truck things.
That's what I'm saying.
Yep. And so I appreciate it. I was enjoying some of those. There were some great specimens, but you're right, roached in different areas. One will have decent body, but then the steering wheel's like mangled. And
well, those get a lot of rust. There's a lot of them rusty. There's a lot of them or they're plow trucks.
You're gonna have to find a good one in Arizona, like where all the
Vegas,
C10s go to die.
Arizona, yeah. But they're hard to find because they're work trucks. Most of them are 100,000 miles.
Right.
I will pay up to find a truck under 50 because I want to have this truck. I want it to be the right truck. So then you go to an XL versus XLT, and really the XLT seats are just so much nicer. And then you get a little later, and you get to have USB ports and sync. So now I'm getting mission creep as I'm going
Now,
through.
see, you can't do
Look
that.
at
And
it.
I
know,
found
but
that,
that's
you
the
know,
problem.
because you don't want to spend that kind of money.
I know.
You're still an entrepreneur. You're still a sole proprietor. You cannot afford these things.
No. So I can't afford a $30,000 used truck. That's not going to happen.
You
so,
are still in the sweet spot of like 18 to 24, in my opinion.
Probably, and there's some decent stuff floating in there.
I think if you wait long enough. But here's my question. If you found one tomorrow,
No.
listen to me. If you found one tomorrow
yes.
and I said, oh my God, you need to buy this,
Yes.
what would you do?
I would hope I found another one down the line.
Oh, you would just let it go.
Yeah, don't have the fundage for that. So we're in dreaming mode right now. Anyway, so our friend Sean continues. 6.4s only survive if they're deleted because without an after-treatment injector, they overspray cylinder 7. It's a terrible design. And I said, well, that's why I think I would do a 6.8 gas, a 6.2 gas, or 6.7 diesel. But the truck around it needs to be solid and low miles. So he was very encouraging. He said, you will find something. I thought that was nice.
No, that was good. Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah. All right. Dan Church wrote in. Oh, no, this one may not be timely because I should have read this a couple weeks ago. Hey, boys, I know and appreciate that Holman is a Jeep guy. His 392 is absolutely amazing, but I cannot wait to hear his unbiased 10-day review of the 2024 Bronco Raptor. I've thrown this thing all over stuff and love it. How do we make it better? Asks Dan. And by the way, he's got a couple of pictures here, Holman, of him like
hucking the crap out of that
Yeah,
thing.
so he's working. He's a couple feet off the ground there.
I don't think you make it better. I think you go, if you don't live in California, and you get that new EcoBoost tune available from your Ford dealer, and then you just make it faster and enjoy it.
Yeah, our buddy Freedom Chariot did that to his Raptor.
So our buddy Ryan Evans messaged me, and he also said, truck shopping, stay simple, V10 or 6.2 gas. Love the 08 interior and exterior updates. Twice my brother got trucks from Gov Planet, which I hadn't thought about. The first was a flawless crew cab he got for $2,500 and out about $4,000 in maintenance and a radio and stuff. He even had a manual. The second one a dealer bought, it was a 6-liter diesel, but had a newer motor, even though it had 50,000 miles. So he looked out there, but he wanted to gas her for all the same reasons you want to gas her. So he sent me a couple pictures, and those are some pretty nice trucks from Gov Planet. So maybe I need to go away from the Carvanas and Edmonds and all those and head on over to Gov Planet and see what kind of Super Duties they got lurking over there.
What is that big place off the 40 freeway that's got all the Hummers and stuff way out in the desert? Just
That would be the Yermo Army Base?
No. It's one of those places where they sell all these things. It's like a
there's
Gov Planet type deal.
Yeah, that might be Gov Planet.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's one of those, yeah.
GovX,
maybe?
There are a lot of
remember.
that would be the kind of place where you would want to buy these because it's dry. Stuff doesn't rot out
Yeah,
there.
but those are all military vehicles there. There's no civilian vehicles that I've seen. It's all Hummers and stuff like that.
I don't know. It's worth looking anyway. Okay, so this is from RB. He says, hello, Lightning and Holman. Regarding the engine braking your guest spoke of while towing a Cybertruck, it should be mentioned that if the EV battery is full, that effect goes away, right?
But what's
guess.
full? Because most manufacturers, when they say 100%, they have
not.
a 10 or 15% threshold above that. Well, let's say you magically were at 100% at the top of a very long drop. Yeah, I guess you would lose that. I don't know.
But you have brakes. So it's like, I don't know. He says, I know nothing about how Tesla handles that situation, but I do know for certain that a Prius begins to coast freely with zero speed retarding as soon as the hybrid battery reaches full charge or said battery gets too hot. Maybe you can ask your industry contacts if Cybertrucks, Ford, Lightnings, Silverado EVs, Rivians, etc. behave the same way as a Prius. Because people should be aware of that possibility existing and plan their EV pickup SUV charging to avoid the possibility of the EV battery topping off during a serious downhill. I mean,
That's
you
a
have
great question.
brakes, but you have.
Well, what he's saying is the engine braking side of it, so that you're not on your service brakes heating them up going down the hill.
But what does a normal car do that doesn't have?
It doesn't have a
engine
trailer
braking?
on it. Normal car has brakes for itself.
I know
He's
that.
talking about engine braking with a trailer on the back.
But all cars have brakes.
Okay, but what you're missing is Ray is specifically talking about the situation with towing and not heating your brakes up at the end of a long hill.
I get it, but a lot of vehicles don't have engine brakes.
But they have gears, and they're downshifting.
Oh, gears, sure, downshifting.
And electric vehicles don't have that.
Of course, duh. I didn't even think of. Okay,
So
yeah,
he's
right.
saying, how can you
because they're
control
just
your trailer?
freewheeling.
Right.
Okay, got it. Oh,
So
interesting.
that's the question he's posing, which is and actually a great question.
That is a great question. You were
Text a friend on that.
Yeah. Huh? By the way, our email addresses, if you want to write in and have us attempt to answer your question, lightning@truckshowpodcast.com, Holman@truckshowpodcast.com, or the general email inbox, truckshowpodcast@gmail.com.
All right, I got one from Matt White. Says, AMSOIL visit and vacations. More factory tours. I guess he liked it.
Okay.
Said, the AMSOIL episodes were awesome. I wish I would have thought to send in a question prior to your trip. Maybe you can get someone from AMSOIL to come on the show and do a deep dive on ATFs. This also has a small tie-in to the new Banks transmission pans. Can they explain the progression from the OEs on a regular viscosity versus low viscosity versus ultra low viscosity? Allison uses TES 295 and now TES 668. I think Mopars use a normal viscosity fluid. What do the 392 and TRX use? The 4 GM, 4, 5, 6 speeds often fall into the LV Dex 6 category. 8 speeds are a special LVHP, and the 10 speeds, I believe, are all ULV. I'd like to switch to a premium product for my 10L1000 when I change the fluid, but I'm concerned about the viscosity spec and getting something that is equivalent. It would be super helpful and informative if a lubrication engineer could nerd out with you guys on this stuff. The bases, blends, viscosities, additive, DI package, compatibility, history, etc. Lightning, your listeners enjoy hearing about your vacation. It's a truck show, but we still want to know it's authentically you and you're enthusiastic about it. So just like Instagram, it doesn't have to be perfectly curated or stick to one theme or topic. It should be you. And if you lose followers, so what? Listen to Holman. Don't listen to stupid internet people. Same goes for the negative comments on the Banks YouTube channel. You do outstanding work. Don't let the idiots get you down with their nonsense. And Holman, did you really just make a Bronco joke? Something along the lines of the Bronco isn't a one-trick pony? That's some gentle comedy right there, brother.
Gentle comedy.
Thank you. By the way, Gentle Comedy is opening up for my band this weekend at Coachella. Thank you both for stacking up enough shows to keep things rolling while you were out of town. Sincerely, Matt. Dude.
I think we need to reach out to either Mark Nyholm or one of the other scientists, or what do we call them? Oh, chemists at AMSOIL. Because I don't know, and they are very specific formulations for transmissions.
Yeah, I should forward that email so we can find out.
Yeah, when we were talking about the Allison, I was going back and forth with Mark when we were deciding on the right package, from quantity to viscosities, all that stuff for the various 5 and 6 speed Allisons for those Cool Runner oil pans over at Banks, for those first fill programs. And my head was swimming. So it's not as easy to wrap my head around as oil, but those trans fluids are hyper specific. So that would be fascinating. I'm all in.
Yeah, let's forward that on and see what kind of info we can get.
All right, truckshowpodcast@gmail.com is the main inbox. Send us a note. And by the way, you can leave us a message. 5-star hotline, 657-205-6105.
The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show. Oh, oh.
And don't forget to leave us a message on the 5-star hotline, 657-205-6105, or follow us on social at Truck Show Podcast, at LBC Lightning, or at Sean P. Holman. You can see what kind of adventures we're up to, what we're working on, and thanks for all the love on the Truck Show Podcast pages. Also, don't forget, we have a great Facebook page as well, and let us know. Truck Show Podcast, again, truckshowpodcast@gmail.com, if you want us to fire up a Truck Show Podcast group on Facebook, because we're seriously considering that.
Thinking about that. And big shout out to Dave, who's still got some mad skills over on the Facebook and the Gram. He's had some videos go semi-viral lately. Like 4 or 5, like hitting 50, 60,000 views and stuff, more. So, yeah, our pages are, they're better than we are. In some ways.
Way better.
Right? Some interesting and funny content. So if you're not following a ton of different truck channels,
just follow us.
At Truck Show Podcast is going to give you kind of everything. It's a buffet of
share
truck
it with your
content.
friends.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Are we done? We're good?
For this episode.
Yeah. Do we need to thank Nissan before we kick ourselves out of here?
We should. We should thank Nissan for being the presenting sponsor of the Truck Show Podcast. If you need a new truck, especially midsize, head on down to your local Nissan dealer or head to nissanusa.com.
And we've mentioned a few times in this show, but look, we all hate high oil temps. We hate high transmission fluid temps. Head over to bankspower.com if you have a Duramax, because the solution's waiting for you in the Cool Runner oil pan and the Ram Air transmission pan. Yes, I said it, Ram air transmission pan. It's got a plastic scoop that funnels the air through the long, thin fins and outcools any other transmission pan on the market. Head over to bankspower.com to pick yours up.
And when you're swapping out that pan, you're going to want to replace that factory fluid with high-quality AMSOIL synthetic fluid. Head over to AMSOIL.com to spec out the right fluid for your application. AMSOIL is a pioneer in synthetic lubricants. They've been doing it for more than 50 years. You can find out at AMSOIL.com how synthetic lubricants can save you money and time by helping your vehicles run better and last longer than with conventional oils. AMSOIL, the first in synthetics.
And there's never been a better time to order your EGR manual roll track bed cover than right now. You'll save up to 30%, plus you'll get a $250 rebate. Again, on your manual roll track bed cover, available at egrusa.com. Hey, and listen, guys, honestly, thank you very much for letting me nerd out on some car audio. I really appreciate you sticking with me.
And if you didn't appreciate Lightning nerding out on car audio, we'll be back next week with a new episode, Sans Lightning.
No.
Sans car audio.
Exactly. Unfortunately, I will be here. The Truck Show Podcast is a production of Truck Famous LLC. This podcast was created by Sean Holman and Jay Tillis with production elements by DJ Omar Khan. If you like what you've heard, please open your Apple Podcast or Spotify app and give us a 5-star rating. And if you're a fan, there's no better way to show your support than by patronizing our sponsors.
Science.
Yeah.
Science for the win.
Yeah, not only science. Sound quality is 50%, not 50%.
80% science.
Half science.
Half art.
Yeah,
All right, break it down. What is it?
I don't know how many percent.